So how does a guy that doesn't know anything about cars own and operate an auto repair business? Because it's true. I am not a mechanic. I don't know anything about cars. I'm not a car guy. Don't even like cars. But here I find myself owning a business in Spokane, fixing people's cars.
So how did you get there?
Yeah.
Is it a business thing or is it a skills thing?
The business has been in my family for 70 years, almost 71 years we've been in business. And my grandpa and his brother started the business in 1954. And then in 1980, my dad bought the business. And then it's been almost 12 years now that I bought the business from my dad. But I didn't grow up in the business. I never tinkered on cars. My first job was working at our Monroe Street location when I was 13. Just sweeping the floors and, different things. But it was never, auto repair's never been a passion of mine or anything. However, I am a business guy and an entrepreneur. That's the side of it that really is what I get most excited about. I do have a business degree, a business management degree from University of Colorado, and that I got many, many years ago. I don't know how much it helped me. Sometimes I wonder about, what good we receive in some of our education. I think it depends on what you do. If you want to be a doctor, by golly, you better go to college, right? You want to be a lawyer, or an accountant or something, you better go to college. For me, I think a business degree back in the day. So I got my degree, 26 years ago. I think for me, it was a foot in the door to get a sales job. At some company, so it's not like it was a big door opener for me, but I've got my degree and it was school was a pretty decent experience for me. So, yeah.
Okay. So you started off sweeping the floor.
Yeah.
And you found no interest in...
I did not. In fact, so I'll tell you an interesting story. So that summer I was 13 and my dad offered me to come and make some money working at the shop, and he paid me $1 an hour is what I was making. This would have been in 1984, probably 1984. And so it was my job to sweep the floors, do cleanup and whatever. But also, so back in the day, we used to reline our own brake shoes. Okay, so now today most braking systems are what's called disc brake systems, where you got a rotor and a caliper and whatever. But back in the day, there was a lot of called brake shoes and whatever. And so customers would come, we'd take the shoes off, and then the lining, the material, the friction material that's all worn down, it was my job, okay, to take those brake shoes and run them through a burner on this conveyor belt thing and burn the old lining off of the shoes. And it was 1,000,000 degrees back there. You can imagine this very slow conveyor belt type thing. So then they'd come through this was in the corner of the shop, and they'd come through the conveyor belt. Then I'd stick them in this sand blaster that would then clean everything off. Then I would glue the lining back on the shoes. Okay, and it was a terrible job. I absolutely hated it. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know, I was maybe, it was a summer job, let's call it 2.5 months or 3 months worth of a job. I don't even know if I made it halfway through. And I told my dad, I'm done. I can't do this. I'm done. Well, my dad is the type that he's got a very strong work ethic that he instilled in me. It maybe not at 13, but eventually. And so he said, well, son, you committed to working for me through the summer. If you don't want to work at the shop, then you can work at home. So I started pulling 8-hour shifts at home, and he paid me 50 cents an hour and to pull nails out of boards and different things. I was pulling 8-hour shifts at home, pulling nails out of boards, and I swear at night he was pounding those nails into those boards so that I could pull them out the next day. So, that was my first sort of foray into working at the shop. And man, at 13, it was not for me.
Damn. So that's I bet that's a pretty dirty job too.
Oh yeah.
Just going back to burning the brake pads
Oh
off.
yeah.
So
for sure.
To reuse the brake pads.
Yeah. And I was wearing these coveralls that were too big for me, and to keep my clothes clean and whatever. And so I'm wearing this very heavy, what seemed to me very heavy, very hot thing while I'm in the corner of the shop burning the lining off of these brake shoes. So yeah, it was not fun.
Yeah. Oh, I bet. So after you got back from school, then what happened?
Yeah, back from college after I graduated.
College,
yeah. So let me fill you in on a little bit of the history. So when I was 20 years old, so I grew up in Valley Ford, which is just south of Spokane. Yeah. So I'm a Freeman Scotty. I went to Freeman from basically kindergarten all the way through my high school graduation. And I say basically kindergarten because my class was the last kindergarten class to be at the Micah kindergarten. And so then kindergarten was in Micah, small town of Micah, and then the very next year Freeman then had a kindergarten. So anyway, there were a group of us, there were probably at least a half a dozen of us that went all the way from kindergarten all the way through high school graduation. Small Freeman, especially back then, small rural community, we lived in Valley Ford, and again, I went to the same school, lived in the same house from the time I was 5 until I was like maybe 20 years old. But I started to go to Spokane Falls Community College. I took a year off after high school. I wasn't a very good student. And so I was pretty burned out, and so I took a year off, and I got a job as a janitor, working at one of the office buildings downtown. And this was one of those 5:30 in the evening to 2 in the morning shifts, cleaning office buildings downtown. And so I did that for a couple of years, probably at least 2 years, and. Then I started going to school at Spokane Falls Community College and got to know a buddy, became friends with somebody there, a guy named Steve, who grew up in Colorado. And he was going to move back to Colorado. And he said, dude, why don't you come with me? And we can get jobs and, get an apartment, whatever. And so I left everything that I knew. Again, same house. All of my friends that I had known since I was a kid, and I packed up and moved to Denver, Littleton specifically, and I spent 13 years there, and that's where I met my wife. Okay, we've been married for 26 years now, and so we met at church, and it happened pretty fast. Okay, happened pretty fast. I don't know what your experience is with the fairer sex, but for me, it happened pretty fast. I was in my mid to late 20s at this time, and I had dated around a fair amount. And man, when I met Tanya, I knew there was something different. Okay, I just think a lot of times you can tell. It was like, oh my goodness, this girl is different. And the thing that struck me about her that was different was I remember having a 4-hour phone conversation with her.
That's a long time.
And that's different. Well, it's one thing to date somebody and boy, she's cute and we get along or we like the same things. I think you need that kind of thing for compatibility's sake and whatever, but we shared our life stories. I was on the phone with her for 4 hours, and after talking with her, I thought, oh my goodness, this is something. Mm-hmm. This is something different, and so we started dating in September of '97. We were engaged in January and married in June. So it happened pretty fast. Yeah. And Tanya is and so my life got turned upside down when I married her. All within a month, okay? All within a month I graduated college, okay? I got married and I lost my job. So I'm sure her parents must have been thinking, "Oh my goodness, who did she marry?" I was so our first 6 months I was unemployed. I was getting unemployment, and I was looking for a job, and it took about 6 months for me to find work. And I've got this new business degree, and I'm applying for jobs and whatever. But I got to tell you, it was good. It was good to spend the first 6 months of your wedded life. We spent a lot of time together that first 6 months, and I think it was really good. They say the first year is the hardest, can be the hardest. Like there's a lot of adjustment that needs to go on, and I found the first year was pretty good. Yeah, it was pretty good. So anyway, my wife is awesome. She is a songwriter and recording artist, and we did music for a long time. She's recorded, I think, 5 or 6 albums over the course of her career, and you can find her at TanyaLowMusic.com, and Tanya is Tanya, and Low is Low, so there's no E on the end of that. So TanyaLowMusic.com. And she's on social media. She's on Spotify. She's on every streaming service.
I'll put a link in the video
description. Good. Yeah.
Check it out in the video description below.
Yeah, she is absolutely awesome. She writes music. She started writing music when she was 11 years old. Mm-hmm. Okay, and we come from, both her and I come from Christian homes. Okay, and so our faith is very, very important to us, and has been, our entire lives. And when she was 11 years old, she got baptized. Okay, and right after that, she wrote her first song, and she knew that there was some sort of correlation between her becoming baptized and this gift of songwriting that God has given her. And I can't even tell you what my favorite song of hers is, because they hit me in different ways. And I remember when we first were, even before we were dating, I remember telling her, whoever marries you had better be fully on board with the music thing, because I knew that she had a calling on her life to do music. And I wonder what she was thinking when I said that. But it's so true. And that's what I found, is that as I fell in love with her and our lives came together, that it was very obvious that I needed to be a part of that world. So after we got married, I ended up, I quit my job, and I spent, 2-3 years during that time period just booking gigs for her. She sang at that time with her brother and sister. So they did this sort of sibling harmony sort of thing, and Tanya wrote the music and they arranged it together. And so I quit, and this is when I was living in Denver. I quit my job and I just started booking gigs full time for the band. And I play guitar, and so I played guitar in the band, and it was a very good pairing, because I'm administrative, okay, right? I'm an okay guitar player. I'm all right. She's amazing at music. I'm okay at music, but what I brought to the table was that administration piece. So it was a really good pairing, because they weren't that good at that. They were artistic, creative types. And so this was a very good opportunity for me to come into that situation and grow the music, grow the music career, getting on the phone. And we did mostly church gigs.
So it's Christian.
Yeah,
genre.
Christian music, right? So I spent hours every day on the phone calling churches in the Denver area, trying to book, concerts and different things and whatever. And so we did that for a few years, and recorded a couple of albums right during that time, and one that was where we had somebody come up to us at the church we were going to, and I'm so grateful, and will be forever grateful to this gentleman that came up to us and said, we really, my wife and I really love the music. What do you need in order to take the music to the next level? And it was a quality recording, and it's very expensive to get a good quality recording. Mm-hmm. And so, a week or two later, he cut us a check for $60,000.
Kick ass.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so we recorded what still, that was 25 years ago. But still is a real pinnacle. The opportunity to really hire the right people, mm-hmm. okay, to produce the project, and the players and all that. It was so good, and it propelled our ability to get into different venues and churches and different things. So it was so good, and now I think that we're on sort of. We over the years have been so much on the receiving end of people's generosity, because we were very poor, very, very poor back during those years. And, we would what's called raise our own support. So missionaries will do this a lot, where it's like, you give $100 a month to some missionary to go into, because they're not making any money, right? Mm-hmm. But they need money in order to survive. And so it was the same for us, where we made a little bit of money from churches that would pay us to come, or selling CDs back in the day when you had CDs. So we would make some money off of that, but we also had a certain number of people just giving us money, like they supported what we did. And so they would, we had one lady give us $10 a month for probably 3 years. That's awesome. Now we are now on the giving end of this equation. And so when we see people that are in need, or musicians especially, because our hearts are very much that way, when we see that, we tend to be pretty quick on the giving end of it, because with the business and how successful we've been all these years, but especially in the last 12 years, business has been pretty amazing. And so we take that money and we give a fair amount of it away. So yeah. When it would have been 2004, I think, we moved from Denver and we came back to Spokane, and I didn't have a job. We put the music thing on hold for a little bit, and I got just a regular job at a credit union in town, a global credit union, working in the HR department. And right around that same time, we also took a job at a church out in Cheney Community Church, where we were leading the music there as well as leading the youth group. And all the while, we had for some time felt a calling to go on the road, to travel. And so we bought an early 70s Greyhound type bus, a big old diesel pusher, converted it into a motorhome, and we went on the road. And so at that time, we've got 4 kids now. At that time, we had 3. And so the 5 of us piled in this big old beat up old bus and traveled all around the country.
That's romantic.
It was very thrilling and scary, and the bus broke down a lot. And I've already told you that I'm not a mechanic. So it was very stressful. And we had so little money. I mean, we were so poor. So like we couldn't afford to, like if the bus broke down or something, I'd have to figure it out because we couldn't afford to take it to a diesel mechanic or whatever, and the cost of gas, diesel, and whatever. There were a lot of things, a lot of amazing things that happened during those years. And, but it also was very stressful, for me, especially I think as the man, I felt the weight of providing for my family, of, I was the one that felt the burden of that more than Tanya did. And of course, the kids had no idea. And this is, I think, if you're going to be poor, let me just give everybody some advice, okay? If you're going to be poor when you're young. It is so much better when your kids are young, because my kids had no idea. Mm-hmm. I mean, so when we moved into the bus and went on the road, our girl who is, so we have 3 girls and a boy. Our girl who now is almost 18, she was one when we moved into the bus. Then my son would have been probably 5, and then my oldest girl would have been 8, something like that. And what they cared about was mom and dad, right? And we could satisfy them by going to the dollar store and buying toys at the dollar store.
Yeah.
Right. It is harder when your kids are older, and then they start to compare how the kind of car they have, the kind of house they have. They start comparing those things, the toys that they have. They start comparing those to their friends, and then you have to say no more often, And I know for us, we said no a lot to our kids for stuff that they wanted. And you say no enough, then they stop asking. You know what I mean? It's like going out to eat. We didn't do a whole lot of that because we couldn't afford to do that, So for us, during those years on the road, we were so family of 5. We were living on about $15,000 a year. And that was we couldn't even really use food stamps.
Yeah,
because we were never in Washington State, so we couldn't use.
Mobile.
Yeah, we couldn't use food stamps and whatever. But we just went without. And it's okay. I'm a firm believer that it's okay to go without stuff. We certainly didn't have health insurance. We didn't have a car. We drove everywhere in this bus, and we went on bikes. We had one of those like pull behind carrier things that you haul your kids around in, that you pull behind a bike. That's what we used to get around. And so a lot of times we would pull into a city, and before we went to the church or wherever we were serving, we'd go to the Walmart. Anywhere you can, that has big, huge parking lots, right? This big, huge bus. So we'd pull into the Walmart parking lot. We'd fill up as much groceries as we could fit. And you can imagine our freezer was tiny, right? So, and then we would go to the church that we'd be working at and serving. And, we had to run all of our AC, all of our microwave, all of the whatever on a 110 outlet, running an extension cord to, the outside outlet of some church. There'd be if it was summertime, we'd have to, if we wanted to use the toaster oven, we'd have to turn the AC off or else we'd trip a breaker, right?
Yeah.
And so we, and again, no car, so no house payment, okay? No rent, no car payment, no car. We just went without things. And I am here to tell you that it is okay to go without things, because there's a value in not having the burden of being overextended financially. Okay, so we live in America. We want our big screen TVs, and we want our fancy cars, and we want all those things, but you pay a price for those things, not just the price out of your wallet. Okay. But you pay you put a burden on yourself when you live beyond your means. Okay. And it's a big temptation. I know what it's like. Big temptation to where you want this thing and you have a credit card in your wallet. And so you're like, well, you don't ask yourself, can I afford to buy this thing? You don't ask yourself, do I have the money to buy this thing? You ask yourself, can I afford the payment? Okay. And I just encourage people that are listening, be careful about that. Oh, yeah. Be very careful about that, because everything has a cost to it. And the burden that you put on yourself, the financial pressure that you put on yourself by being overextended, that costs you something. And so conversely, if you don't have that burden on you, there's a value. There's a value to not having that burden. I will share with you, there was a real low point for me during some of those really lean years. And I say this within the context of a faith filled person, okay, that believes. I believe that God loves me. I believe that He wants to provide for me. He may not always give me excess, but He cares about my needs, and He's going to provide for my needs, however that might be. And it might be through the job I have. It might be through the generosity of other people. But I believe that God loves me, He sees me, and He cares for me. And one of the ways that He does that is to provide for me financially. So I remember we were very, very struggling financially, and we went to get groceries, and the amount of the groceries was what would have spent almost everything that we had. Okay. Yeah. And I reached in my wallet, and I had a choice to grab my debit card or my credit card. Okay. And I was feeling a lot of pressure right then. And I will never forget that I reached for my credit card and I bought groceries on my credit card. Okay. When you're buying groceries on your credit card, you got a problem. Okay. And the problem I had was a lack of faith that God was going to care for me. Because of course I'm thinking, if I use my debit card, all that money's going to be gone. And I know that 2 days from now my mortgage is due, or I know that 2 days from now I'm going to need that money. And so it was a statement, in my opinion, it was a statement that, God, I don't trust you. I don't trust you to provide for me. I will tell you, let me tell you a story about God's provision to me. And it was right during those years. So we were at a different church every single Sunday, and sometimes we were leading worship at a church. So leading the congregational song, sometimes it was given a concert, whatever it might be. And we did this big church in Colorado, and we sold some CDs. Okay. On Monday, I went through the money from the CDs that we sold. So let me back up. That Monday morning, I had to write a check for our mortgage. So we owned a home back then, and that overextended us, frankly, but we owned a home that we couldn't afford. That morning, we were deep in the grace period. You know what I mean? You ever been deep in the grace period for paying your mortgage? We were deep in the grace period. And I, it was calculating how long will it take the mail to get there, okay, with the check that I'm about to write that I don't have the money for, okay? And so I prayed, and it seemed like this prayer happened a lot during those years. And it was, God, do you want me to stop doing this? Should I just go get a regular job? Hey, do you want me to stop this? And time again, I felt God saying, no, you keep going. I will provide for you. And so I had to write that check. And I knew the money wasn't in there. Okay. I was $385 short. Okay. But I wrote the check and I put it in the mail. I then grabbed the money bag from the gig that we had done the day before. And I was, we have an inventory of CDs. And so to make sure that everything squares. I know how much money we should have in the cash or checks or whatever based upon how many CDs we sold. I started adding it up, and there was not a match. There was $385 more in the money bag than there should have been, based upon how many CDs we sold.
Mm-hmm.
I called Tanya's brother and sister who had done that gig with us, and I said, did anybody give you extra money, like selling CDs or something? Did anybody give you any extra money? Did we get anything extra come in? And they're like, no, it's just a typical thing. And it was the exact dollar amount that we were short to pay that mortgage. And I believe that, and there were many stories like this,
Mm-hmm.
many stories where I'd be like, one time we were walking through the mall and somebody from church, we just happened upon them and they handed me $100 and they're like, I just feel like God wants me to give you this. And it was exactly what we needed to make it through that day or that week or that month. And I'll tell you, that was really hard. Mm-hmm. But I am a much better man for have experienced those years. I am a much better man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I trust God more. I know that I can do without. Frankly, I care less about money, I think, because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't hold on to money like maybe I could have or would have. And I think everybody responds differently, okay? Because you certainly there are people that struggle early and then they have money and then they never want to go back to that again. And right? So then now they the only way they can be satisfied is to make more of it. It's the only way. So everybody has a choice to react to whatever comes their way. We all get to choose how we react. For whatever reason, that's how I'm reacting. I'm trying my best to keep it as loose as I can, because in comparison to what I experienced during those years, whatever sort of financial difficulty that I might have right now is nothing compared to what we faced. And when you face something difficult, you can get through it. Mm-hmm. So it's like my life has been a life of extremes, because we didn't know anybody as poor as us during those years. Okay. And now the business is very successful, more successful than I know my grandpa, when him and his brother started the business in 1954, they would have no clue about what it has become. And so we now find ourselves in a financial situation that I just could never have dreamed of. And I love the fact that I've lived both those extremes. And frankly, the more valuable extreme is the poverty. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I think about poverty a fair amount, and I think about poverty in our country. And, and we can get into politics in a bit, and I'm happy to talk about that because I do like politics. Mm-hmm. And what the good that can come from it and the harm that can come from it, whatever. But when I think about poverty, I know I've lived it. Mm-hmm. Okay. But I'll tell you what I haven't lived. Okay. When I was in poverty, there were two things that were different than most. One is that even though I knew I didn't have any money, I had a wife that loved me. Okay. I had at the time 3 awesome kids that I could invest my life in and that brought me joy. And it was hard. Raising kids is hard. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I had that. I also felt like I could, based upon my just how I made and my education and whatever, I could pretty easily flip a switch and say, I'm just going to go get a job. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I would have succeeded in doing that. So when I say that it's, because I really believe this, that it's okay to be poor. It's okay to be poor. I think we all ought to be striving to succeed and whatever, and we should all work hard, okay? And sometimes when you work hard, the result of that hard work is wealth, okay? Sometimes you work hard and you're never going to be wealthy.
Yeah.
And you know what? That is okay. That is okay. What I think is a much bigger problem is our broken homes, our broken families, our kids that are being raised without a mother and a father, our domestic violence is a problem. Drug abuse is a problem. All these things. It's like it was okay for me to be poor because I had a stable home life. I had a wife that believed in me, right? If I was poor and I didn't have that, or I was an alcoholic, if I was an alcoholic and I was poor, this would be real bad, right? I think our society and our government thinks that money is the answer and the solution to so many of our problems when it just isn't that. But our government doesn't know. Our government only knows how to give money. Okay, our government doesn't know how to foster healthy families. And this isn't, on some level, this isn't the job of the government to foster healthy families. It's not the job of the government to create spiritually healthy Americans, right? So that's a job for the church. That's a job for our communities and our organizations and whatever. And so when we think about what good can our government do, it's very limited because government does not know how to create healthy families or spiritually healthy people. Okay, so they say, well, the government has money. All right, so that's one thing we can do. Well, then, and I'm all about, like, if there is a hurting person, if they go through something difficult and whatever for a period of time, or if they're mentally handicapped or disadvantaged in that way, then the government needs to step in, right? Absolutely. But if you are an able-bodied person and that you can go get a job, you go get a job, right? Save that government money for people who have had an injury and can't work, or save that money for the elderly that no longer can work. We ought to be caring for those, but the government ought to be caring for those people and caring for them well. But it's hard to do that because we are giving money in a lot of ways. We are giving money to people that don't, we're putting that money into areas that, and I don't want to be too harsh, but that don't need it. It's like, it's not a money problem. There are other problems. And when you get those other problems corrected, again, relationships, spiritual, family problems, you get those other problems corrected, then all of a sudden the money problems start to dissipate too. And we know statistically that this is true. When we know that poverty goes away or decreases when you have two people that are married. Okay, all you have to do, okay, is don't have a baby before you're married. Okay, don't have a baby before you're married. Get married, stay married, get a job and keep that job. If you did those things, then we would not have the poverty sort of situations that then the government feels like, oh, we got to come in and we got to solve that. The only tool we have to solve it is money. Okay? But that's not the solution to our problems. Okay? So it's not that hard, but how do you convince people to not have sex with everything that moves? That then a woman finds herself pregnant, and then she's saying, well, maybe I should have an abortion. That's I know I can't raise that child by myself, and the father's not in the picture. So now, okay, there's no good option. So I'm going to take the worst, the best of two bad options: killing the child or raising it without a father. Okay. But I don't think it's too much to ask to be sexually pure. This is a very heavy lift, obviously. And it's such a heavy lift that I think we don't even want to ask. We don't even want to advise our teenagers to remain celibate, because that's not going to work. Okay, but so the struggles that we face in our country are they're spiritual, they're relational problems. If we get those spiritual and relational things taken care of, then we just won't have the level of poverty and financial difficulty that we. I mean, I wasn't expecting to say all that. What do you think? I want your opinion on this.
All right. First off, that's a good humbling experience that you went through. And I have been in those exact experiences where I'm like, I can't pay this bill. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, a lady at our church prayed for us and the bill was paid.
Yeah.
I get a thing in the mail saying, no, this has already been paid. And this happened a few times. Like you see God's miracles if you're pure in heart, if you're willing to look and you're willing to humble yourself and fast and get into these states where you're ripping away these commercial materialistic ideas. And a lot of what you've described can be reduced down to 3 words: first world problem. Because there's a lot of countries where they have different dynamics too. And I've noticed that while people are afraid of premarital sex, the data is showing that these teenagers aren't doing that. In fact, they don't do anything.
Right.
You have to nag them to get a driver's license. Yeah. And that is, and you saw it during COVID. You saw increases of suicide calls for teenagers. You saw all these strange, things that are going against the exact opposite of the way they act. And I'm kind of concerned as to where that's going to go. And how do we control that flood? How do we create a generation of people that are wanting to work, that are hungry enough? I went to this auto body shop the other day. That was dropped off my mom's truck, and the guy charged like $230 to fix this the back handle. And I started joking with him, talking about the latest one of the South Park episodes where all the handymen are billionaires and they're staging cage fights and everything. And he was talking about how he was having a very difficult time getting people to work.
Oh yeah.
And I've noticed this too. And when you start seeing that the government doesn't want independent, strong families. The government wants to destroy them. They want people on welfare. They want broken homes to feed the privatized prison systems. So that it's against their incentive. But imagine if Americans, all those people on welfare, right? And every time they raise the minimum wage, they're upping the ante. So it's like you get a job at all, even part-time, you're off welfare. So it's even encouraging the welfare queens to double down on their welfare. And so I imagine how much more productive and rich we would be as a country if we had a work ethic. And my dad said it. He's like, I guess people just aren't hungry enough because he's got a cabinet shop and it's hard to maintain. And that's... I don't know. I'm hoping the market will shift. The market has a way of self-correcting, and we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, I think the mechanism for creating a healthy society has got to be the family. I just don't see. I mean, as somebody, if you leave a comment on this, if you could convince me that there's some other mechanism that is better for creating quality adults than the family, I'm all ears. I can't perceive there to be one, because nobody is going to have greater influence over a child than their parent. Okay. And yes, they're influenced by their peers and whatever. But their peers are dumb too, right? So as adults, we ought to be mature adults making wise decisions with our money, with how we live, all these things. So we ought to be the ones, because we've lived it. We've made the mistakes, right? As parents, we know what not to do. So then we tell our kids, listen, I'm telling you I'm putting these guidelines in place for your good, because I know that it's good, because I've done the opposite in my life. Okay? And there's no better place than in the home to teach our kids these things. But it's not a surprise that we have societal breakdown when our homes are broken. Okay? But again, I think it comes down to a little bit, it's like the government don't know how to do it. How does the government, or it seems like such a Herculean thing. It's like, how do you create healthy homes and families? Well, there obviously are organizations, whether Christian or not, that is their thing, that, focus on the family, or your churches. Like, there's so much good, okay? Then there are good churches and there are bad churches, right? But if you're a family that's struggling, okay, and the government ain't going to save you, right? Go find a church. Find a church that you can get support from. I mean, we go to a church in Spokane Valley called Sun City Church. Okay, and we have earlier in the year we led a group of married people through a marriage class. Okay, so there are resources in our churches that can strengthen your families, can strengthen your marriages, and we had, there were, I think, 4 couples, and it was such a pleasure to, a couple of at least one of them was married about as long as us, but most of them were not married as long as us. And, in whatever difficulties that Tanya and I have had in our marriage, and whatever lessons we've learned that we, over the 26 years we've been married, I want to give that to people so that they don't have to make the same stupid mistakes that I made. Okay, so when we think about if you're listening today and you're like, man, I don't know how to organize my life, I don't know how to get a job and hold a job, or I don't know how to care for my teenage daughter who doesn't want to hear anything that I have to say, or I've got 3 kids under the age of 8 and I don't know how to parent them. Okay, well, Googling it is not enough, or reading a book is helpful, not enough. Listening to a podcast, good, but not enough. There is a wealth of support that can be found in our churches. And it's possible that you don't believe, if you're listening to this today, you may not believe anything that the pastor says at a church. Okay, you're like, I don't believe Jesus even lived, or I don't believe I don't think the Bible's true at all. What? So you got to come to grips with that in yourself. But I'm telling you, regardless, there is help for you in a church. Okay, there's an interesting thing that has happened in church culture in the last 15 or 20 years, and that is most people. The only reason why you'd go to a church is because you're already, quote unquote, a Christian. Okay, I have faith. I'm a Christian. I should go to church. Boom. Our churches are filled with people that way. An interesting thing has happened in the last 20 years, and that is that we have a lot more people that are going to church that are not Christians, but they want to know about it. They want to. They know that whatever it is that they've been doing in their lives to be in charge of their own life, or to try to live this life, they know it's not working. They're not ready to commit to surrendering their life to God and to all that stuff that comes with the salvation, but they're like, I need help. And so if you are in this place, you can go to a church. It's okay. And I know you walk in there and you don't know what's going on, and you don't know when to stand up or sit down, and they're singing these weird songs and you don't know anything about that. And you don't know, I know that if you've never stepped foot in a church and you're like, you know what, I think there's help for me there. You don't know what the help is, but I think there's help for me there. You just go. You just go, and you're going to feel weird. You're going to feel awkward. You're going to be like, oh, what if there's something that happens during the service that I don't know that, I'm supposed to do or say or what? Get over that. Just get over that. Because I know that our churches are filled with people that want to care for you. They're not perfect. They're human beings just like everybody else. And I've been, and I'll just be completely frank with you, I've been hurt more by people in the church than I have by people that don't go to church. And they're human beings. But I will tell you that there are people that really care about you. Really care about you. And so I don't say, well, I can't go there because I don't believe. Hey, don't do that. Go there. And even if I believe that even if you go there for motives that are just a little bit messed up, it's okay. It's all right. Like if you go there because you need help and support and you're like, but I don't really buy into the Jesus thing, then you think, well, I can't do that because I don't buy into it. Don't worry about that. Just go. And I know, and I can't speak for every church in Spokane or wherever you might be hearing this, but Sun City Church, where my wife and family and I have been attending that's been maybe 5 years now. They're very good about bringing people in and caring for them and understanding to the best that they can, understanding each person and connecting them with people in a relationship. So, man, how did we get on that subject?
What's cool about these podcasts is guests will generally get to that subject. They generally do go to their faith at some point, which is awesome. Yeah. And that's a good starting point, especially for science, because I believe that science and faith complement each other. I don't think that they separate from each other. And yeah, a church can do a lot of good things, whether it is giving a drug addict a chance, or giving all the Ukrainian immigrants here food from the food service. Because even doing that, the ability to organize people, because church isn't just about me, God, and my Bible. It's about a group of people getting together to do the works. Yeah. And in getting people to organize, to go pick up food that's about to expire from all these grocery stores that they're going to throw out. And we are a wasteful nation. I mean, we are so wealthy in America that our poorest people get fat to death.
Yeah, that's weird.
It is weird. And you know what? And I'm not believing this myth. I've heard this myth like propagated from several sources, such as wealthier people are healthier people. And I think and they say, oh, the poor people, they're poor because they have a worse diet, so they eat at fast food more because they have to work more. And I'm thinking, no, that costs a lot of money.
It does.
No, I'm not buying that at all. And I see, like, just going to different countries, like the Marine Corps has opened that eyes for me for that. Going to numerous countries and coming back to the U.S. every time and saying, God, these people are so fat.
Yeah.
Oh, horribly obese.
Yeah.
And it's just the standard of what somebody considers fat is different. And just by being physically fit in this society, people will look at you differently. And it's just a strange thing. And sometimes people like accuse you of things such as, oh, you're on drugs. Or you're doing this, or like, no, man, I just control the hand-to-mouth movement, and I have a little bit of discipline.
Yeah. So it's funny because we don't lack knowledge, we lack discipline, right?
Yeah.
We don't. I mean, good night. You even if you can't afford health care, okay. And I believe in healthcare, and I'm better for it, being able to go to my doctor, and they run the tests every year, and they check my blood pressure, my cholesterol, and whatever. So it's very good. Healthcare is awesome. It's great. However, you can get on your phone, your $1,000 phone that you've got in your pocket, and you can find, you can get 85% of the way there. I mean, God forbid you get cancer or something devastating, right? That's barring that, right? There is enough information out there. We don't have an information problem, okay? We have a lack of impulse control problem.
Mm-hmm.
We have a discipline problem. So I'm at my age, I'm 53. And when I was in my 20s, man, I felt amazing. So get into my 30s and it didn't feel quite as amazing. Okay? Started gaining a little weight. My 40s, into my 50s now. It's like I cannot act like I did it when I was in my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I want to look and feel good, and I care more about feeling good, frankly, than looking good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And if I want to feel good and be able to walk across the room, without struggling, it takes effort now. And it takes effort in exercise, and it takes self-control. And it has been a long process for me. It's funny because people look at me and I don't look overweight, and I look young. Can you believe I'm 53?
Like you're 50.
I know. So I get this a lot. I'm 53, but I look like I'm in my 40s or something. And, but it's been a process for me because I've had an unhealthy relationship with food. Mm-hmm. Now, when I tell people that, they're like, what are you talking about? You're not overweight, or you're crazy. But it's mental. It's battles are won and lost in the mind.
Yes.
Okay. And so when I think about, if I get depressed about something or whatever, I think, man, that double quarter pounder at McDonald's, man, that going to KFC sounds really great right now. Because I'm it hits you both ways. I'm celebrating. Life is good. I'm celebrating. I'm going to overeat. Oh, life sucks. So I need comfort. So I'm going to overeat. And it's been a process. One thing I found is that our bodies need so much less food than we feed it.
Yeah.
Good freaking night. I mean, literally. And this is where it comes back down to the economics of it. To say, and yes, food is expensive and it's messed up. Inflation and what we've experienced the last few years, it is wrong. It's self-created largely, and it is not good. And people are struggling to buy food. I get it, and that's absolutely true, and it's wrong. Okay, the circumstances that have been put in place by overspending and the government overspending and all that has created a situation that's not good. It's not right. And we're eating way too much food. We're spending more on food than we need to because we feel like we need to feel that sensation of being full, like all the time. Or if I'm hungry, then we eat more than what we need, which every time we eat more than what we need, we're spending more than what we need. But it is really hard. It is hard to get out of that pattern because I think most of it has to do with our habits. It's hard to break a habit. We have this we are locked in to patterns, habitual patterns. And I this happens to me almost every night. Like 9 o'clock rolls around and whether I'm hungry or not, I need some popcorn. Whether I'm hungry or not, big bowl of pasta. It's terrible. I don't need that. But I do it because my mind says, for all my life, 9 o'clock rolls around, I need something to eat because I start to feel it a little, even if, and I don't need it. But we do this because it's so ingrained in us. And I am so much better for showing some food restraint because, like I said, now I'm in my 50s. It's like, if I want to feel good, forget the look good piece because that is far less significant than the feel good piece. If I want to feel good and enjoy the life that God has given me, then I have got to stop overeating. I've got to stop. I need to exercise. I need to, and there's a phrase that I really hate, and it's called fat and happy, because there is no such thing. I mean, and what I mean is that like this image of that I'm going to consume excess, and my consumption of excess is going to make me happy. Yeah. I mean, this is a lie. This is a lie, whether it's excess in food or excess in alcohol or excess in whatever it might be. We think, oh, if a little bit is good, then boy, more must be better. And I hate that image of fat and happy because it's just not true. I am far happier when I restrain myself. Okay? And it is a weird thing, knowing my background, going from being very poor to all of a sudden I have money and whatever. It's like I'm no longer constrained by my wallet in what I eat or where I eat or what I consume, what I indulge in. Because before, in some ways, it's a lot easier when you're poor because, if the money's not there, the money's not there to overindulge in whatever that thing might be. And now that the money, for me, the money is there, it's like now it's real hard because I have to intentionally choose to show some restraint. But you know what? It's better. It's better that I get to intentionally choose to show restraint. I'm a better person for it. Okay? What do you think?
Absolutely. So one thing that I have done and I've told others to do is if you want to get financially independent real quick, like if you want to start a business or you want to get that money, what you do is you say, for one whole year, all the money that I would have spent at McDonald's, I'm going to instead buy 1 share of McDonald's stock.
Oh, there you go.
All right. And so buying that 1 share of McDonald's stock or Chipotle, I prefer McDonald's because they pay a dividend, which is nice. And they pay a fat one, like $6-7 so per share, and they pay that dividend too.
Wow.
And so after 1 year, you're going to have 12 shares of McDonald's stock. You're going to get 12 times 7 payment every 3 months. And that's tax free. That money's tax free because for a single guy's $45,000 in dividends is tax free.
Oh, wow.
And so you got those bricks. There's this book called The Richest Man in Babylon. So you're laying the bricks in your wall of Babylon in those 10 shares of McDonald's stock. And then and then another thing you can do if you want to get even more money quick, eat everything in your home and don't buy groceries for 2 months. Yeah. 2 months. Don't buy groceries.
And just eat until it's all gone.
And it's fun. Like it sucks, but it's kind of an adventure.
Oh, for sure.
And it's like that with me when I'm running. Like when I go and I run quite a bit, and I force myself to run. And when I'm going these long distances, it's like there's nobody out there. It's me versus me. It is just me pushing through the pain and knowing that the only reward I'm going to get at the end of this is just a picture of the mileage that I get to post on social media, and knowing that I can eat whatever I want afterwards. So my philosophy is if you can run 50 miles a month, you can eat whatever you want. But you got to be disciplined.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But once you break that barrier and you're exercising a lot, you won't crave garbage food. I don't.
Yeah.
I think of it as poison now.
Yeah. This has been my experience too. As long as if you can get through the hump, right, then it's a smooth sailing. Not that it's perfectly easy all the time, but I don't want to misspeak that. But so one thing that happened maybe 5 years ago, I went to a naturopath, and she did some blood work and whatever. And she said, you should not be consuming dairy. And I'm an extra sharp cheddar cheese guy and sour cream on my taco guy and
the high cholesterol.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, well, it's hard for me, to preface it, it's hard for me to make any changes that I don't notice. If somebody says, hey, you should stop consuming soy. Soy is bad for you. And then I stop consuming soy and I don't feel any different. That's rough. That is tough for me. Okay. But she said, just go off dairy. I went off dairy, and I'm telling you, 3 days later, I felt like $1 million. I didn't even know how bad I was feeling. Okay. And my stomach would get upset, a little bit upset, semi-regularly. It never gets upset, hardly ever gets upset anymore. I lost 10 pounds without doing anything else. Okay. My energy level in the afternoon went way up. I mean, and my wife can tell you the amount of like Saturday afternoon naps I took, and left her to parent the kids by herself. And I hardly ever do that anymore. And I just, on the topic of dairy, I think dairy generally is not good for most people. It's inflammatory, whatever. But for me specifically, with the test that I took, she said, you should not be doing dairy. So the way that my body responded to it, it was probably more extreme than some people. If your body can process that, then you probably should limit it anyway. But it's going to be different for you than it was for me. But identifying those things that your body can't process or however, and this does sort of come down to like what I said before, where it's like most of the information you can get about being healthy, it's online, but maybe 15% isn't. I mean, it costs me money to go to a naturopath, right? Some people can't afford to do that. So yes, I am benefited because I have the money to go to a naturopath that frankly changes a good portion of my life, like just by this blood test that I did that I had to pay out of pocket for. Okay. But again, like I said, you can get 80% of the way there by Googling it and by doing very basic things. Don't eat more than you need to. Mm-hmm. Don't eat processed food. Eat less, exercise more.
Yeah.
And you will get most of the way there.
I find I eat once a day.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. I'm eating one time a day, and that's
so they used to say that that's bad for you. Now it's a whole thing, intermittent fasting. Now you're doing the best thing you can do. Like 10 years ago, they were like, oh, you don't want to, that'll mess up your blood sugars and your or whatever. And now it's it's a total thing that you're supposed to be doing, apparently.
Yeah, for sure. The cheese, that's an interesting one because they do shoot up those cows with a lot of antibiotics. And those antibiotics affect your gut biome.
Yeah.
And usually when somebody gets antibiotics, they got to give them probiotics to help the gut biome regenerate. So you're probably battling some gut biome thing.
Yeah.
And
so one time. So one thing I noticed, I'm not a big alcohol drinker, not at all, but I am more now that I'm off of dairy, because if I were to drink a beer, my stomach would be just a little bit upset. Yeah. I don't know what the correlation here is, but once I went off dairy, if I drink a beer, I'm totally fine. It's so, and I will have, one beer probably every 2 weeks or something when my wife and I go out. So I'm not a big alcohol drinker, but this funny thing happened when, this dairy thing, it's been maybe 5 years. The first year or so, if I were to consume dairy, it would make me tired.
Yeah.
Okay. And so one night I was coming home from some evening meeting, and I had a moment of weakness. Yep. And I was driving by McDonald's, and I went to the drive-thru. It was like 9:00 at night, and I went through the drive-thru at McDonald's, and I got something, and I forgot to tell them don't put cheese on it. Mm-hmm. Okay. But then I thought to myself, well, it's 9 at night. I'm going to bed. If that cheese is going to make me sleepy, I'll just use it as a sleep aid. Right? Mm-hmm. So I ate this piece of processed American cheese from McDonald's, and I went to bed. The next morning I get up, and I worked for like an hour, and I went to sleep, and I slept for 5 hours. It knocked me out. It messed me up. Now, because dairy has not been in my system for 5 years, now I'll throw up. I'll just, like, if I eat sour cream, it's disgusting. Cream, heavy whipping cream, sour cream, whatever, it's gross to me now. And a couple of years ago, my wife and I were at lunch, and I got the sandwich, and I just assumed there wasn't any sort of dairy product on it. And I get eating the sandwich, like, man, this thing is delicious. Mm-hmm. Then I got halfway through the sandwich, and I'm like, excuse me. So I went in the bathroom and threw up. It's like, there must be dairy on that. But it's okay, because like we said before, most of our food consumption, or most of anything that we do, is habitual. Once you break that habit, like, I don't miss it. Or I used to get, Coke at a fast food place. There's like nothing better than a burger and a Coke, right? Mm-hmm. Now it's like, no thanks. I have no interest. no interest in it. So anyway, if we can get past the hump on a lot of these things, whatever our vices are, and some things honestly will hang on and we will fight, especially if you're, God forbid, you're an alcoholic. It's a terrible, terrible thing. And you will carry that like your whole life, and you always it will get better. I'm assuming it will get better as the years move forward, but you will always have, one slip up can send you right back down the rabbit hole. But all that to say, most things that we face, once we kick the habit, it's a lot better. So
yes, I watch sugar a lot.
Okay, yeah.
And it's hard to walk down. You walk down the cereal aisle and just flip that over.
Yeah.
There's like 12 grams of sugar per cup. This is too much. I've been really conscious of that, just trying to cut out sugar. Now I'll think about the dairy now. I'll try to see if there's a correlation between that and sleepiness for me. Yeah. But
yeah, my thing is salty stuff. I'm a sucker for potato chips and popcorn, and and my blood pressure's been up a little bit last few years, and it's concerning to me. And so my salt intake, I just had my physical a couple of weeks ago, and my numbers looked amazing. Actually, that like my blood pressure was good, and my cholesterol was good, and some of my numbers were really good. And it doesn't happen by accident. Yeah, it takes effort, and I've been doing cardio. And I told my doctor when my blood pressure a couple of years ago, when it was consistently up enough. I told my doctor, I'm like, I'm not taking a pill.
Yeah.
You tell me what I need to do. I am not taking a pill. I'm like, I'll give it a year, okay, of cardio, of working out, of cutting this, cutting that, and if that doesn't do it, and I've been disciplined, okay, give me a pill, because I don't want to die a heart attack, right? Give me a pill if that, but I'm not. Don't even reach for your prescription pad right now. I'm not doing it. And one thing, it's probably overstating it to say it's been life-changing, but just in the last month, I've been doing something that it takes little to no effort. And I think is part of the reason why my blood pressure has been down. When I talk to my doc about it, he's like, oh yeah, that's going to be amazing. And it's breath exercise.
Oh, like Wim Hof.
So you got to do this. You got to try this. So it's just, and it's not complicated. It's not hard. But twice a day for maybe 20 minutes or something. I'm watching TV at night with my wife or something. Very slow, deep breaths. Bring it in, hold it at the top for 2 seconds and bring it out. Hold it at the bottom, a couple seconds, breathe back in. And that is definitely a good impact on my blood pressure. But one thing I notice is, so I do this elliptical, okay? And sometimes I don't do it. And weird thing happened last week. I missed like 4 or 5 days of doing my elliptical. And if any of you do cardio, if you miss 5 days,
you're back to nothing.
You go back and you're like, oh, why did I skip those days? Because then it's murder. I missed 5 days. I went on the elliptical and I didn't miss a beat. I'm telling you, I did not notice I noticed it in my legs a little, but in my breath, I didn't notice it at all. Missing 5 days of cardio, and it's this breathing thing that I've been doing. And after you do it for 20 minutes, your energy level is great. So one of two things can happen depending the state you're in. Your energy level is up because you just oxygenated your body, right? Or what I find at night is that it calms me down. Slow breathing also calms you. So it's not like it's a different sensation because it's not the boost you get from caffeine. I mean, that's an artificial boost, right? But so it's not a high that would cause you to not sleep at night, but it is a calming, at the same time, an energizing thing where it's like, man, my body feels great. And it's like it leads you into sleep or it will lead you into your day. So in the morning and at night, I do this, and it's been awesome. You got to try it.
Yes. I have been real interested in breath work, and I've studied that. So there's this guy, this Dutch guy named Wim Hof. He's, I don't know if he summited. I know he made it pretty far up Mount Everest.
Okay.
No oxygen.
Wow.
This guy is this crazy breathwork Dutchman whose wife died, and they just started jumping into cold frozen lakes and started doing seminars and whatnot. And it's really impressive how he can control his body. And other people have done it. He said if you work it good enough, you can get yourself into psychedelic states.
Oh yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer in that, because I used to do a lot of hypnosis when I got back from Afghanistan. It helped me a lot. Not necessarily past life regression crap, but just hypnosis for focusing on the breath work, focusing on the meditation, starting from the head down and relaxing every muscle and getting into this state. And it took a lot of practice before I could get into real deep hypnosis. And
with the assistance of somebody, or just by yourself?
YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, just YouTube hypnotherapist.
Wow.
Like I would put in best hypnosis for sleep.
Yeah.
And I used to, at times I felt like I was kind of becoming dependent upon it, but it's really cool.
Yeah.
Hypnosis is really cool if you, but it's mostly breath work.
Yeah.
And just allowing yourself to be open to the suggestion of the imagination in your head that you're in a pool of water, or this glowing ball of light is rubbing your body.
That's cool.
Yeah. And it is cool. It's something worth checking out, but it all starts with the breath work.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it that, and we keep circling back to money, but it's like that doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah, it doesn't cost you nothing.
And it's like there's so much that we can do that, like, we don't need the big equipment, and we don't need the, all of the or all of the excuses for not doing stuff. It's like I can't afford a gym membership, so that's why I'm unhealthy. It's like, okay, well, you can run in place, can't you? You can skip rope, you can do all sorts of stuff, and it's that stuff that that doesn't cost us anything, which this reminds me. So a couple of weeks ago, I spoke at and you guys can look this up. I spoke at a business forum at Real Life Ministries in Post Falls. It was a luncheon thing, and so you could just Google it and you can find my talk there. But one of the things that I touched on was I encouraged the people there. That's a variety of people, business owners, ministry leaders, whatever, executives, whatever. And I encouraged them. So the talk was about growth, like growth and expansion. So at Golden Rule, we have grown a lot in the last 12 years. Okay. We opened a Post Falls location a year ago. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, it was our 1-year anniversary of our Post Falls location being open. And I am about 2 weeks away from closing on some property in Coeur d'Alene for a Coeur d'Alene location. And right now we have 4 locations. And when I bought the company, we had 3, and there was lots of growth that happened just at the locations that we have. We expanded, building projects expanded our each location and whatever. And so I spoke about how do you grow your business? How do you expand your business? And one of the things I encourage the people to do is to come up with 1 or 2 things that will grow your business that won't cost any money. I think this is also a trap for business owners, and whatever it is that you do, you start to think, you start to have what I call if only thinking. Okay, if only. Let's say I own a construction business, and I say to myself, if only I had that $90,000 pickup truck, then my clients would be impressed. Then my truck wouldn't be breaking down all the time. If only so my business isn't all that great. If only I had that truck. Or my business isn't all that great. If only I was in a different neighborhood. Or if only this. And I really discourage people from this if only thinking. because mostly it creates excuses for why we don't succeed. Okay, where most of our problems in business or in life, frankly, are internal problems. Okay, that and which is a double-edged sword, because it's so easy to blame other people. It's easy to blame external forces. Okay, to say that the reason why I'm not successful in my business or in my life is because my parents were terrible. Okay, or I didn't have the advantages of another person, and those are real things, very real things, right? But those are external things. Okay, it's the temptation to use those things as scapegoats. It's too much. Temptation is too much. Okay, and most of the time our problems are internal. Okay, now this is hard because it's hard to identify our own failings, right? So that's real hard. But the good news is, we have control over these things. If the problem in my business is internal, that should be fantastic news. That should be the best news ever, because I can fix it.
Yeah.
If it's an internal problem, I can fix it. If it's an external problem, it probably isn't. Listen, if you were in the real estate industry in 07, 08, okay, I got you. I'll give you a pass on that. If you owned a restaurant in 2020, I'll give you a pass on that. That's external. There were some external factors there that, regardless of how good you are at your job or in your business or whatever, those were pretty tough. Those were pretty tough to overcome. But most of our problems are internal, and if they're internal, then we can fix them. I encourage you to look up that talk. Growth has been a big part of my thinking as we at Golden Rule have grown so much.
Yeah. So how'd you do it?
Just luck, man. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, luck's got nothing. Is it better to be good or lucky? That's a good question.
So it's an interesting thing, because I came into the business that was already successful. It was already doing well, which was weird for me, because up until then, with the ministry things that we did and whatever we did, it was starting from scratch. It was like I had to scratch and claw and get this thing started, and that's hard. And coming into a pre-established, already well-known business was different for me. It was fantastic, right? I actually told my dad this about 5 years in, and I think I offended him. So, Dad, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry I offended you. But I said, this is the easiest job I've ever had. And he was taken aback by that. And I think in part it was true at the time, because I had done so many difficult things, right? It's like, in comparison to what I faced before, this is a cakewalk, right? As things continued on and we continued to grow and stuff, I wouldn't necessarily say that that's still the case. I mean, I'm equipped to do the job that is my job to do. So when you're equipped to do the job that you're doing, it's easier for you to do it than somebody that's not equipped to do it. And I sometimes with my employees, I feel like they think I've got it easy or something, because I blow into the shops once a week and I shake some hands and I smile and I say hi and whatever, and then I'm gone and they're left to fix the cars day in and day out, year after year. And I blow in once a week and I talk to the guys and I whatever. And the perception, sometimes I get concerned that the perception in the eyes of my employees is that either I don't work hard or whatever. But I went through a difficult season a few years ago, right? It wasn't a COVID related thing, but it just so happened to occur in 2020, where I was sued by a former employee, and don't need to get into the details of it. I didn't do anything wrong, and it was ultimately dropped and whatever, but it was hell. It was hell for about a year and a half. Okay. And I had one of my guys, as I was struggling through that time, he said, "I am so glad I'm not you." And I was so happy to hear that, because of this. And maybe the perception is not, maybe I'm off base about what my guys think of me, because I've felt this perception. It's like those guys are in the trenches and I'm somehow above all that or whatever. And I don't like feeling that way. I don't want people to think that that's the case. And so it was very satisfying to me when that employee was like, I'm so glad I'm not you, you know, because when you own your own business, if it's successful and whatever, there are some real nice perks to it.
Mm-hmm.
But man, there's a burden and you never know when that burden is going to come. And that period of time, it hit really hard, and it was sleepless nights. And I remember many times where I would pray. I mean, like I was like, God, take this from me, or I would say to myself, I'm gonna will myself not to worry.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it was a psychological battle, and I believe that a lot of our battles are won and lost in the mind, right? And so I remember, I'm like, God, I'm gonna will myself to not worry about this thing, you know. And sometimes I was successful and sometimes I was not. A lot of times I was not successful. The times that I think, and it's interesting that the hypnosis thing that you mentioned, or meditation or whatever it might be, can be so helpful. Prayer for me, that's my help, is that when I'm alone with God and I'm like, I just tell him I'm really struggling and I need help. And God has always been faithful to bring peace to me. But I've got a part to play in that. And it's like I have to choose to lay this down, to lay that stress down. And so there's certainly an ebb and flow. So your question was, how have we grown? How has this happened over the last 12 years? And it's a handful of things, I think. I think that, so I'll condense it down to two or three things, okay? If you have a product or service that people need, that's number one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're selling something that nobody needs, good luck, right?
Yeah.
So, and if you create a high standard, and if you hire the right people, and if you do that consistently over time, then you'll succeed. And you may not succeed as much as the next guy or whatever. Comparing yourself to people, I think, is largely unhelpful.
Yeah.
Okay. Because our outcomes are different, our opportunities are different, our talents and gifts are different. They're just different. So we're all gonna succeed in different ways. But in business, you got to have a product or service that people need. Hold a high standard in the quality of what you do. Surround yourself with people that are good at what they do, that are better than you at what they do. And if you do that consistently over time, then I think you'll succeed. So it was an interesting thing when I came into the business. We had, so the locations were just these small 3-bay shops. Okay, 3 lifts, 3 bays. It was, we do at Golden Rule it's just brake and suspension type work. We don't fix your water pump, and we don't do transmission. We don't do any of that stuff. Okay, but any like shocks and struts and ball joints, all the steering stuff and whatever, along with brakes. That's what we do. And there are a limited number of people that need that work. It just is. Like, we are intentionally limiting ourselves, right? We say no to jobs every single day that we could make money on, but we say no to those things because, first off, we're successful enough in our lane that we don't need to do that stuff. And I want to be known as the experts. There is nobody in Spokane that is better than us. Consistently, there's nobody that that can compare. And I don't say this pridefully, or it just is a fact. There is nobody in town that is the experts on brake and suspension like we are. Okay, so I like being the best at something. I'd rather be the best at a small thing than to be okay at a bunch of things.
Yeah.
Okay? I feel better about that. So when I came into the business, the demand was pretty high, okay? And so we were starting to find that the problem wasn't to get the phone to ring. The problem was, do we have enough space to accommodate the demand? And so within my first year and a half, 2 years, I put lifts outside, okay? It was cheap. And we put a little carport type cover over, throw a lift out there, and for the first time we did that, it paid for itself in about 10 days because the demand was there. And then at about the 2-year mark, I thought, again, the perspective was that that even that first month that I owned the business, there was more money in my bank account than I had earned like in my whole life practically, right, in 1 month. And so it was a resource that I believed was mine to use. Okay, whatever money that you make in life is yours to decide what to do with, aside from the amount that the government takes. Okay, yeah. It's a totally different subject. But so I had all this resource, and so I thought, well, I mean, I still am a meager person that I don't need to go and buy some brand new car just because that money's sitting there. So I thought, well, we need to take that money and we need to multiply that money. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so there was 1 year that I increased our advertising budget by 1/3. That is a lot. That's a big increase, increasing your marketing budget by 1/3. But it paid off. That year, we broke records all over the place. And it was right at the same time that we increased our capacity. Okay, so it's just a matter, it's a push and pull. It's a do we have enough demand? Once the demand reaches a certain level, then in order to accommodate the customer, you need to grow. Okay, so it's really hard on me when I spend all this money on radio advertising or, Google advertising, whatever it is we do. I spend all this money to get the phone to ring, then the phone rings, and then we're booked 2 weeks out. This is no good. Yeah. This is no good. We can't do that. So that was what we were facing sort of in some of that first year. It's like, and because at the time we had 3 locations and each of them performed a little bit differently and whatever, it's not exactly equal. But at the time at our highest producing location, we were booked 2 weeks out. And I'm like, we can't do this, because then customers call up and they're like, they get on the schedule, then they don't show up because they forgot that they had scheduled with us, or they get on the schedule because they want to secure a spot, then they go someplace else and get it done, then they never call us back. So we get a bunch of no-shows, we get a bunch of cancellations and stuff because we're booked too far out. Then, and just on a very practical financial level, if we're booked 2 weeks out and somebody calls on the phone and they got a big old truck and the brakes are grinding, we love it when your brakes are grinding because it means your rotors are shot. That's a big job, right? Calipers might be messed up. It's a whole, so just from a business practicality, business perspective, if you're booked too far out and you've got a gravy job that you have to say no to, good night. It's no good. Plus those people, when their brakes are grinding, they're concerned. Yeah. Right? This now all of a sudden you got a safety issue, and we don't want to tell that person who's worried that they got to wait 2 weeks to get in. So they're just going to go someplace else. So it was a combination of saying, we're going to increase our capacity, increase our marketing, that increased demand. And I just slowly over time started to build on to our locations, and which cost more money, but it always paid for itself. And we've been riding a wave. And it's interesting because we are again reaching some capacity problems at our locations. And so, it's actually worked out so perfect for me, because right around the time that some of our numbers were starting to level off. Okay, so we've seen increases every year. Aside from 2020, we saw a decrease in revenues in 2020, but every other year we've seen, each shop has seen big increases. About a year ago or so, those increases started to slow down a little bit because we were reaching some capacities and capacity problems, and that was right at the time that we opened our Post Falls location. So I really encourage businesses to grow. Absolutely max out your growth where you're at. And when you don't expand, don't open another location, don't expand until you've maxed out all that you can do at your current locations, because so much cheaper, right? So much cheaper to grow where you're at than to be okay. Like, you're not really succeeding, but you're doing okay. Now I'm going to spend a gob of money, okay, to then open a new location, whatever it might be, restaurant, could be whatever, accounting service, well, it doesn't matter, okay? But then you run the risk of taking your eye off the ball of your primary moneymaker, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you're not maxed out where you're at, then it may be, and this not always, but it may be an indication that you got a problem, right? So now all of a sudden you're not maximizing one location, and you're like, okay, now I'm gonna take my eye off the ball of this location that's not doing amazing, and now I'm gonna put all of my attention, which is not all of it, but you got to put a lot of attention to a new thing, right? Because you need that to succeed. Now all of a sudden you're splitting your attentions. It's much better to split your attentions when your money maker is doing well, because it's the thing that's making everything else possible. I think that we have better employees now than we ever have. That's a big part of why we have grown, and it is hard to find good employees. Yeah. It is really hard. But if you treat them well and you pay them well and you provide, and this is a thing that I think is so much, perhaps the most important thing, maybe not, but perhaps, and that is provide them with opportunity. Okay? Because, and this is why a big part of why I want to keep growing. Okay? I feel like I don't need to be more successful. I don't need more money. I don't need more, right? You reach a certain level where it's like, I don't need another car, right? That's dumb. Okay? Don't need that. But my guys aren't in the same place that I'm at. And in a blue collar thing that like I own, a guy's longevity can be limited. Once these guys hit 40 years old or whatever, their bodies, their shoulders, their backs, they're lifting tires, they're wrenching on stuff. Either they find another line of work, or we promote them into a manager where they're not doing the labor anymore. Okay. So, and I have felt almost my whole adult life that I lack a bit of drive. I don't, like, people have different drives. And I don't think I have an overabundance of drive. Now, this seems real weird to people when they hear me say this, because you would assume that running a successful, well-known business, whatever, the multiple locations, and we're growing, and we're, that I must be totally driven, and that it's my drive that is accomplishing. And that's not, frankly, it's not true. And I every person has a different level of drive. I don't need to rule the world. I don't need 100 locations. I don't care. I don't need it. But for the sake of my employees, that is a big part of why I want to keep growing. Okay? Because if I don't provide opportunity for my employees, they will go where the opportunity is. If it's not with me, they can go someplace else. I would not fault them for that. Okay? Especially in my industry, where it's like, my body's not going to last. Yeah. My body's not going to last. So if Dallas isn't going to provide me with a manager or assistant manager opportunity, I have no other choice but to leave. Now, those people that have that drive, those are the best people I've got. So if I don't grow, I'm going to lose the best people I have. It's self-preservation, frankly. My desire to grow and expand is self-preservation. It's the only way I know how to succeed, is by continuing to feed hungry people. Okay, I want to feed my employees who are hungry for career advancement. Once I stop feeding them that, I would not fault them for leaving. Right? So, and we have very few people leave. Very few people leave. It happens sometimes. And I obviously have fired way more people than have left for other jobs and whatever. But sometimes people are. I had a really good guy that wanted to move back to his family, and so he left. I can't do anything about that. Some guys will want to do full service. Like younger guys sometimes don't want to get locked into just brake and suspension work. It's like, I want to be a master mechanic. I can't give you that. Okay? I can't give you that. What I can give you is a promise that we're going to continue growing. I can give you that. And if you got the skills to talk to people, to organize information, and, if you have some administrative skills, then that I can give you. I can give you opportunity there. Can't make you a master mechanic, but you can make very, very good money managing one of my locations. okay, or assistant manager, whatever, and it's not bad on your body, whatever. So I think there's no simple answer to how do you grow. It's multifaceted, and every industry is different. I'm just telling you, for us, it's a handful of things where we really genuinely try our best to treat people decently, honestly. We don't lie. We make mistakes. So my good night. We've made some dumb mistakes. Okay, every business is going to make a mistake. Mm-hmm. What I have found is that when I deal with a business and that I pay good money for some product or service and they make a mistake, I'm not so concerned about the mistake. What I'm more concerned is, what do they do? What is their response to the mistake that they've made? And that's my thing. It's like, there's no way. The thousands and thousands of cars that we see, we're going to make some mistakes, okay? And it's going to inconvenience the customer, and they're going to think we're crap, okay? What do I do? Am I refunding money? Am I whatever it might be? You know, I'm. It's very important to me that we correct any mistake that we've made. Now, on the flip side, I certainly have also had customers that try to pull a fast one. Okay, if we make a mistake, man, I'm going above and beyond to correct it. Our reputation is at stake. And I have had people pull the Christian card or the Golden Rule card, saying what liars they are, that they would claim to be Christians, or that they say that they live by the Golden Rule or whatever. And that's a cheap shot, because usually what happens is that we make a mistake. They think that we're dishonest, okay? Because and I don't totally fault them for that, because we live in a suspicious society, especially with auto repair. Our industry is not known for being overly honest. Okay, so if something doesn't go quite right, then they will, and I understand why they think that, it's because we're dishonest or whatever. So I try to go look at our Google reviews. Okay, I respond personally to every single Google review. The positive ones, I'm on there. I'm like, hey, thank you so much. It means a lot to me. I've noticed that a lot of our customers will name my manager by name in their review, and that makes me so happy, because I know that means that the manager actually connected with that customer. There's a personal connection with that customer. And the bad ones, I hate bad reviews, but at the same time, I love them. I love bad reviews, because I can't be at all 4 locations 8 or 9 hours a day all the time. Okay. So if somebody has a bad experience with us, and they go on and they slay us, and sometimes they're fair, sometimes they're not fair, but whatever, doesn't matter to me really. But what it does, it allows me the opportunity to dig into whatever complaint it is. Okay, if they never go on and complain, then I'll never know, and if I never know, then I can't correct it. Okay, so it's a double-edged sword. I don't like getting those bad reviews. At the same time, I totally love it, because it means that my guys also know. It holds them accountable. If ever one of my guys thought that they could pull a fast one, or they could get away with something, they know that if they upset a customer, not every time, certainly, but a lot of times they're going to, we either get 5-star reviews or 1-star reviews. Have you ever noticed this online reviews, especially in the service industry? There's no like 3-star. I mean, it's a unicorn getting a 3-star review. People either think we're the most amazing thing ever, or they think we're the devil. Okay. And so when I get those, my guys know any bad review, dude, I'm meeting with you. I'm on the phone immediately. I'm like, hey, did you see that review that came in? I need you to tell me what happened. Okay. We've even had customers accuse us of recommending things that didn't need to be fixed. Then this is the cardinal sin. It's like, you don't do that. And so in situations like that, I will say, can you bring your car back down? Would you be willing to bring your car back down so we can show you why we recommended? Now, as a caveat, a couple of years ago, we instituted a new system where we take pictures of your worn brake pads and whatever, and we text you the pictures, we text you the estimate, whatever. This has been fantastic for us because it increases the level of trust when you're actually showing them a picture. This is why we're recommending this. But even before that, I even paid people. I'm like, listen, I know it's inconvenient. Mm-hmm. You're accusing us of recommending something that does not need to get done. Okay. I'll pay you $100 to come down here so we can show you. And this is a win-win for me because it's a win if my guys were honest and then I get to show them this is why we did it. So then we just regain the trust. It's also a win for me if I have an employee that's pulling a fast one and that car comes down and I paid that guy $100 to come back down here and come to find out that my guy was dishonest. Well, that's a win for me too, because then I can remove that person and we don't have to worry about that happening ever again. So
that's good.
Anyway.
Well, you brought up a lot of good points. First thing I need to do is use the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Go right ahead
and tell everyone a cool story about
okay.
breaks.
So I will say that, so I'm third generation running Golden Rule Brake, and I can't tell you how happy I am about my son, who is about 2.5 years into the business. That he's 20 years old, and so we'll see what the future holds for him. But he's very smart. He's very good at what he does. He's not working on cars. He is working alongside me and doing a lot of HR things and administrative things and whatever. And I'm just very happy that if this goes a fourth generation, that he's being prepared right now for how to run the business. He sees me do it. He doesn't always agree with every decision that I make. And that's because he's wrong most of the time. Just kidding. And so I'm so glad that my son is in the business now. And it's been, like I said, about 2 years he's been in the business. In fact, he said, so my kid, just to back up, we've got 4 children. My oldest is 20, almost 24. She's a missionary in Northern Ireland.
That's probably a fun thing.
Oh, we've gone a few times, and Ireland is a pretty cool place. And she just got married this year, and so we have a son-in-law. And then my son is 20, or is he 21? Oh my goodness, I think he's 20. No, he's 21. Oh my goodness. Jeremiah, I'm sorry. I forget how old you are. Anyway, and then Ember is almost 18. She graduates this year. And then Liberty is 9.
Cool names.
And so, yeah, thank you. And so, where was I going with this?
Your son, is he more driven than you?
I would not. That's a good question. I don't think so. But here's the thing. What's going to happen is that, so generationally, I have it the easiest. Okay. Because I didn't start it. That's real hard. Okay. My dad in 1995, so he bought the business in 1980. In 1995, he opened our Francis Avenue location. That's real hard. Going from one location to 2 locations, he had to take out a big loan, and there was risk and whatever. And then in 98, he opened our 3rd location in the Valley. So as far as that, those 2 generations, I think, had it hard. My generation, I already came into something that was working. And yes, obviously we're succeeding more than we did back then and whatever. So I've done my part. I'm doing my part. Okay. And I think at my age, when it's all said and done, 5 locations, maybe 6. My guys are like, oh, we can definitely have 6, maybe 7. And I'm like, I don't know, man. We don't do tires. We don't do full service. So like I said before, there's a limited number of things that we do. And so this limits the amount of customers that we'll be interacting with. And so I don't know what the saturation point in this area is, but for sure 5, probably 6. And so my goal is to get that done. And if I can own the land on all 5 or 6, then that's good enough for me. And I think the timing will be pretty good for that at me creeping toward my mid-50s, that'll be fine. Now for Jeremiah, it's going to be rough on him because if he wants to grow, he's going to go out of this area.
Yeah.
If I saturate northern Idaho and Spokane, greater Spokane, then he will hopefully grow where we're planted. I mean, we'll get better at what we do, hopefully, and he'll maintain our integrity. I have no doubt about it. But if he wants to grow, he's going to have to look at franchising. He's going to have to look at, Tri-Cities or Wenatchee or Montana or, wherever. So when I look at the generations, I feel like I've got the easiest spot of it. But
yeah.
So how long have we been going?
That's almost an hour 50.
Okay, wow.
And I'm happy last time it went to an hour 47 before it overheated. But
perfect.
And one day I'll because I want to get at least 3 camera angles.
Oh yeah, that'd be good.
And do that thing.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So let's see here. You had a few things. There was a few things I was thinking of. Have you ever heard of a SWOT analysis?
Sure. Yeah.
Strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, threats. So let's go through that. What are your strengths? So you identified quality experts that are working. You only hire quality employees, right? Yeah. And so that's a strength. Another strength is you're growing. Mm-hmm.
Our reputation is we're obviously known for our honesty, and that is a real strength that's been built over decades and decades and decades. Yeah.
And you do a really good job at the social media marketing because I don't see any other brake companies dropping in all these Facebook groups, which is very important. Yeah. So those the reader board signs that we do, we're really known for that in this area where we put a little quirky, funny or thought-provoking message up every single week. We've been doing this. This predates me. We've been doing this for probably 30 years maybe. This was an idea that my dad had many, many years ago, and I just think it's been fantastic for us because when you get a customer or not, you get anybody driving by your business, how in the world do you get them to look at your business? I mean, people will flash bright lights at cars. They will have those funky, weird things that, with their arms are waving, filled with air and whatever. So it's like we want people driving by to look at our businesses. Okay, so we change those signs every single week. It's a different sign. We never miss it. So Monday morning, when people are driving to work, I know they're looking. And we have had people say, lots of people say, I'm here just because the signs. Mm-hmm. And of course, I'm thinking to myself, that's awesome.
Well, yeah. And I'm like, what makes you think that because we put some sort of message up on the sign that we know what we're doing? Right? But I'll take the business any way I can get it, right? Yeah. Because what you're doing, you're creating a sense of goodwill, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we psychologically, when we receive something from a business or a person or whatever, there is a compulsion in us to give them something back. Yeah. And that's what these signs do. Every single day, there's tens and thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people that are receiving something from us, a feel good, a little chuckle, a thought-provoking thing. Mm-hmm. So we give something to people every single day, free of charge. So this compulsion happens where it's like, I've received something from Golden Rule. I feel like I should give something back. And what they give back to us is their business. Okay? Yeah. Even though there's no connection between some funny saying and our ability to repair their car, doesn't matter. So that's certainly, those signs are a huge strength for us.
Humor sells better than sex.
It does.
I learned that when I was a Domino's pizza driver because that's all I had, and so I'd try to hit somebody with a witty quip, and sometimes I'd get a bigger tip.
There you go. And we never put advertise specials or anything. We don't do any. They don't sell our services on it. Whatever. There's enough people doing that, and they don't. It has its value, and we don't want to mess with the value.
Mm-hmm. And so opportunities for growth. So you feel that, well, you don't know the saturation point
I don't.
yet.
I don't.
And so there's a lot of opportunities there. How many more stores do you want to build?
Yeah, so here's the thing is that I would rather
Mm-hmm.
have 5 locations that absolutely kill it
Yeah.
than to have 7 and 2 of them are just okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd make more money if I had 7 and 2 of them were just okay. But this sort of speaks a little bit to maybe my drive or whatever. I don't need it. I'd make more money with 7 locations. But what I don't like is having a location that underperforms. Like, it's really hard as a business owner of multiple locations to get each location to be performing the same way by way of like the car count. How many customers did we see in a week? The ticket average is a ticket average is like how much a customer spends on every visit. Okay, obviously there's value in customers spending a lot of money, right? However, frankly, I would rather have each of our locations have a similar ticket average than 1 or 2 of them have a way bigger ticket average than the others. Okay? Even though if I had 1 or 2 locations where the ticket average is way bigger, I'd make more money, right? So you'd think there'd be some value to that. But whenever there's any sort of anomaly, okay, this is concerning to me. So it's concerning either if I've got one location whose ticket average is a lot higher, I start asking myself, are they selling stuff they shouldn't? We have a lot of power. Okay, we have a lot of power, a lot of influence over our customers because we've told them, they've been told by the community that we're honest. Okay, you don't want to abuse that. You don't want to abuse that. And so we have the ability, based upon our reputation and our word, okay, to sell people. If we wanted to, we could sell them stuff. I mean, so many times the customers will say, I was expecting that I had a major problem and you told me it was just a rock caught in my pad and you didn't even charge me. And they're like, I would have paid. They say this all the time. You could have made lots of money on me. But it's like, well, we don't need to do that. I mean, it's a numbers game. As long as we get enough customers coming through the door, and we know that the potholes around here are terrible, and their suspension's going to be big. It's just a certain number of people are going to have problems, right? I don't need to make up problems, okay? Because we operate vehicles that break down, okay? So we don't need to make this stuff up. But anyway, so like I said, I'd rather have all of my locations performing similar than to have a couple of underperformers. And we actually are facing this right now a little bit. Our Monroe Street location, we've been there since 1961, and we can't grow there. The size of the lot is too small, okay? And I've been trying for a year, at least, a year and a half to relocate that location because I don't like that it underperforms the rest of the locations. Now, it underperforms by a raw dollar amount because you just can't pack that many customers in that location. It does not underperform by way of the work that's being done there. The guys are very efficient there. They're very fast. They're smart. So it's functioning, even on some matrix, better than some of my other locations, and I am so proud of those guys down there. And I hope you guys at Monroe, you're listening to this because I think you guys are awesome. With the limitations that they have there, their individual performance is really awesome. But I don't like having a location whose revenues are half of our other locations. So we're really trying to relocate our Monroe Street location, but I don't want to move too far from where our current location is. We get a lot of business from Kendall Yards and the courthouse and different things. But I am not convinced that going downtown makes any sense. In fact, Mayor Brown, if you're listening to this, I have reached out to you a number of times to try to request a meeting with you. And You have not acquiesced to that request.
I've asked her on the podcast too through emails.
And so I'm trying my best to have an open dialogue with the mayor about, like, somehow convince me that relocating our Monroe Street location downtown makes any sense. I mean, if you got a plan, the way I see it, downtown Spokane is an asset. It is an asset. And whether you're the mayor or you're any government official, if you have an asset, you don't let an asset deteriorate. You don't let an asset, you don't allow it to be broken. That's dumb.
Yeah.
Okay? You maximize the assets that you've got. If you want to grow, if you want to advance, you maximize the assets that you have. Downtown is an asset. Like Riverfront Park, that's a huge asset. And we invested, how many years ago? A lot of money in Riverfront Park. And I think that's great. It's an asset that we're treating well, right? Mm-hmm. Downtown, not the case. Anyway, I'm done with that. Mayor Brown, you have my phone number.
Well, that's a good point, because first, my first thought before I lose it is it appears that your degree in business has had an effect on the business.
Maybe, I don't know. It's been too many years.
Like
Dude, it's been a long time. Experience trumps education every time. Again, unless, if you're a doctor or something, but experience is it. Experience is it. And now I have 12 years experience, and I had experience running a ministry, a nonprofit, whatever, before that, working with people and whatever. So, and for a mechanic, I don't care if a mechanic has, went to the program at the community college and learned some stuff or whatever. I care about experience, right? Experience trumps everything, basically.
Mm-hmm. So you identified a weakness there in the Monroe Street, that it's making half, but your workers are twice as good.
They're pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
So my thought is, why not just consider the Monroe Street the specialist street, and you double the price, and everyone who's got all these interesting problems, you say, no, you got to go to the Monroe Street.
Well, that's a tough move to make, because we have about 30 employees. Okay. So if you're talking about specialty things, I've got a couple of really great guys at our Pines location that, like, if it's an older car, I got a guy, Scott, that's been with us for 30 years, and he's in his 60s, and he knows his stuff. Right. Mm-hmm. So, but you got to be careful also about your marketing messages, right? Yeah. We want a uniform message across all locations, across all things, so that they know, regardless. It's like McDonald's, right? I know if I go to McDonald's in Sioux Falls or if I go to McDonald's in Spokane, I'm getting the same double cheeseburger, right? Yeah. Although I shouldn't be eating that, should I? We already discussed this, that I should not be eating at McDonald's too much.
Well, that brings up another good point too, for who are your competitors? I mean, we know there's Midas.
Yeah. Is there even a Midas in town anymore?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't know. I know there's Les
Schwab. Schwab's a big one. Tire-Rama. Any independent ma and pa place, a competitor of ours. Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you separate, besides quality and honesty?
Yeah.
What other things?
Yeah, those are the big. Those are clearly the biggest things.
Quality and honesty.
And one thing I have found, and I'm not calling out anybody any company in particular, but it's been my experience, and I can just speak from my experience, is that through my observation, a lot of businesses are run poorly. Mm-hmm. They just are. They're run poorly. And again, please, I'm not pointing out anybody in particular. Please don't get that impression. But what I find is that I've heard from employees that I've hired stories of, like, how they were treated by their managers or by their owners or whatever. And it's like, why in the world would anybody do that to you? Mm-hmm. Because when they come to us, they're valued, they're given opportunity, and they make me lots of money. Holy smokes. I mean, if it weren't for my employees, I'd have nothing. I'd have nothing. For one, I can't step in and do it. I literally would have nothing. I couldn't, I don't have the skill to step in and do it. And so I think that poorly run companies don't maximize on opportunities, don't go through that SWOT analysis, don't do any of that stuff. They deteriorate, and eventually customers, after however many problems or whatever, they're like, man, I hear those commercials about Golden Rule all the time. And I see those signs all the time. I think I'm going to give them a shot.
Yeah. You mentioned radio commercials. Are you still doing that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do you feel that that's valuable?
I do.
Okay.
I do. Yeah. And I know where you're going. Obviously, who's listening to the radio anymore?
Yeah.
It's podcasts, it's Spotify, it's streaming, whatever. Statistically, okay, when you look at the stats, radio is still working. When I look at anecdotal evidence of people saying, "Oh, I love your commercials," or "I heard the commercial and that's why I'm here," we still hear that all the time. Okay, I will say one thing that I've told our advertising agency is that as we continue to grow, I'm not spending any more on radio.
Yeah.
Okay, so because you don't want to change what works. Okay, if I have reason to believe that it continues to work, and I'm in the perfect situation here because I don't have to risk diverting monies from radio that I know historically has worked. I don't have to risk messing with that in order to grow because we're growing. And I told my ad guy, I'm like, I'm not spending any more on radio. Don't do that. Because you're right. It is going away. It's dying, frankly, a pretty slow death. But any added marketing budget is going toward social media, going toward Google AdWords and whatever. So that's how I manage that thing. Because again, you got to be careful about, even if society is changing, do it slow. I'm a big believer in, like, don't make a lot of big, quick changes, especially when it's working. Like if something's not working, then yeah, you got to make a change. But if something's working, take slow transitions so you don't, you limit your risk when you slowly transition away from something that has worked for a long time.
So how do you feel that Google Ads are working?
I think it's working okay, and we don't spend a lot that direction, but we are going to be we're going to increase our marketing budget by some significant percentage in 2025, and it's all going towards social media. So we're looking at how do we create not just ads, social media ads, but how do we create a social media presence with me and my son, so we have a story to tell. Right, we have a good story to tell. We're a Spokane institution, and we're a multi-generational family business with the
Tres generaciones.
Yeah, that's right. With the next generation.
You have your own bottle of brake fluid.
That's right. That's good.
Heads on it.
That is good. That is good. So the fact that we have the fourth generation, a young guy that's coming into the business, that's in the business now, that also plays very well. So I think we have a story to tell that can be told through social media, and you go where the eyes and ears are. Like when you think about marketing, like people consume marketing messages with their ears and their eyes. Okay, ears are on radio still, especially for us, and I'll say that I'll make a caveat here is that we want people listening to the radio in their cars because we fix their cars. Yeah. If you're going to listen to the radio, okay, you're not going to probably listen to it in your homes. I'm just saying, you're probably not. Some people are. If you're going to listen to it, it's going to be in your car, right? Now, a lot of people, and I do this, obviously I'm streaming through Bluetooth in my car and whatever, and a lot of people are doing that. But the point being is that if you're going to listen to the radio, it's going to be in the car. And we want them in their car because there's a natural connection for the service that we provide. So,
that's good. So on the world of Google reviews, I've got that's one of the first things I started studying. It's really interesting. So you can report one negative review a month as spam and get it off. Or, I'm sorry, every 3 months and get it off. Just FYI.
So we have done that a little.
Okay.
So we have had disgruntled employees. We've had people that like we look into it like, we don't have you as a customer. Like, and we know that they're either disgruntled employees or competitors or whatever. We've had some of that, but I don't do that very often because I don't mind the bad reviews. In that, when people are looking through the reviews as they're trying to decide, do I go to Golden Rule? Even the bad reviews, they see me respond to every single one.
Yeah.
And I will respond. And usually my initial response is, thank you for leaving this review. I'm going to look into this and I'll reach out to you. Okay. Then if I can't find them as a customer, because sometimes their Google name isn't what their real name is, right? So sometimes, I don't know who it is. Then I will go in and update my response and just say, hey, I'm not finding you as a customer. Can you email me and tell me because I want to, or can you call the shop? Because I want to dig into this. Probably 70% of the time, they don't respond at all. We live in a society where like it's a hit and run society. And I'm the one that can fix it. If we've really done something wrong, okay, I can fix it. It's in your best interest to reach out to me. When I reach out to you, if you had a bad experience with Golden Rule, I'm the guy that can fix this, okay? But what I found, and I'm not judging anybody other than I'm just telling you what the truth is that the overwhelming majority of the people never reach out to me because they just want to bitch and moan about it, and they don't want to fix it. They just want an outlet, right? They want somebody to hear that those jerks at Golden Rule did da-da-da-da-da-da-da, right? And I will keep, at some point, certainly I let it go. Like after I'm like, hey, can't find you. And if they don't respond, then I let it go. But I will then go back onto Google and I will say, hey, for people reading this, they never reached out to me. I tried. They never got back to me. And so I don't want to remove a bunch of reviews. I want our customers to see that our consistent follow-up on bad reviews should say something about the quality of work that we do.
And it's cool. You're the first person I've ever met who said that an increase in revenue might be a bad sign.
Oh, yeah.
That's really cool. I've never heard that before. For
sure. Because I need everybody doing the same stuff. It's an indication. I say I'm the guy that has to be worried about everything. Okay, I'm worried when numbers are down, and I'm worried when numbers are up. I got to be worried about it because it means something. It tells me something is different. Okay, so if I have a location where the ticket average is high, I need to ask myself, are they doing something that they shouldn't, or are all of the other locations not doing something that they should? Right. So either way, we got to dig into it because uniformity is so important to me. Yeah. Like I don't want you going to our Post Falls location and getting an estimate for a repair, taking your same vehicle to our Valley location and getting a different recommendation on stuff. I can't have that, right? Because it speaks to a lack of our professionalism, our credibility, and all that. So that is owning a multi-location business. It's one of the hardest things. Is you got 30 different people doing this work across 4 different locations. I need some uniformity there, and whenever something goes out of, if there's some sort of anomaly, got to look into it.
Yeah. So have you noticed? And maybe this may not be the case for you because you kind of alluded to it, but the proportion of employees to the amount of revenue, like more employees will equal more revenue. For sure. Although not all employees are created equal, I'll tell you that. I mean, I am better off having fewer better employees than having more adequate employees. We have less comebacks, less problems, less whatever. And I'd rather have fewer employees
that are really good that get paid well
Yeah.
than to have more employees that I'm just paying the average to. So,
Yeah, it's good to have well-paid
Oh, yeah.
employees.
Oh, it
or
sure
else
is.
They're gonna jump ship.
Sure is. Yeah. And you know, I hope my employees are loyal to me because they're treated well and they like the culture, they like the environment. I hope that's the case, but rubber meets the road when the check clears. I'm just saying, you know, my smile isn't enough to put food on the table, right? So you have to back that up with, and again, I'd rather quote unquote overpay a really good person than to pay an average for a couple of people that are just average.
So have you guys done TV commercials?
About 5 years ago, we did one. We did one, and we didn't spend enough. Probably, when you look at entering into a market in marketing, I think a lot of businesses make a mistake of like they run a commercial for a week and then they're like, well, I didn't see any business from that, and so they stop doing it. You gotta have to be all in on a minimal level that says we gave it a shot, okay, and you don't want to underspend and then blame the lack of success on the medium where maybe the lack of success was because you didn't fully commit. You know what I mean? So we did it sort of like it didn't cost us much to do the commercial, and we did it, and I think it was a fine commercial, but yeah, it was a one-off.
Interesting. That's cool. So, talk a little bit more about your hobby. So you started, you were talking about music, and my first thought was, man, you should have brought your guitar because you could have plugged it in.
Yeah.
And so you and your wife Tanya, are you guys still doing?
Yeah. So she released an album. It's just awesome. It's called "So This Is Freedom," and again, you can find it on Spotify, YouTube, wherever. And so we have been doing some gigs around town, doing some bars and different things, and other like fundraiser things we'll provide music for. And you know, we're open to doing churches and whatever as well. And then Tanya has a vision to release 2 albums, sort of basically back to back. One that is like full on Christian themed, very bold, probably more pop or rock oriented, and then another one that's more like love songs and, you know, secular, for lack of a better term. And so we're actually building a recording studio at our house.
Cool.
And so we can do
fun.
it all in house and whatever. So, and our son Jeremiah plays the drums, and he's awesome. Oh my goodness, he's great. And he writes music. He plays guitar, plays drums, and sings. My oldest daughter Beth plays guitar, sings a little, is writing a little bit of music. Ember, who is 17. She's pretty great. She sings, plays guitar, and writes. I'll share a funny thing that happened just a couple of weeks ago. So Jeremiah, he was like, hey, I'm working on this song, and we were all sitting around the living room, and he said, I'm working on this song. I've got like the first verse and the chorus, and so we're like, oh, play it for us. He sings this song, and it's really good, and we're like, dude, that's going to be an awesome song. And then Ember, my 17-year-old, she's like, I finished a song too. And so we're like, oh, well, let's hear it. She sings this song. It is spectacular. And we all, so she finishes the last note, and Jeremiah looks at her and says, oh, you're kidding me. You got to be kidding, because he knew it was better than his. He knew it was better. And we all knew it was better than his. His song was fine. It was a good song, right? But it was one of these really funny moments where we're like, yeah, Jeremiah, that was pretty good, but Ember's song was, I cried. She has a way with a lyric, and her voice is very soft and subtle, and like she loves Taylor Swift. She's just a Taylor fanatic, and And so she's great. And then our 9-year-old Liberty is, we'll see about the music. I joke with her and I'm like, you're going to be a musician, right? And she's like, no, I'm not. I'm like, and then sometimes she'll like just randomly sing something that'll be on pitch with either something I was singing or some on the radio or whatever. I'm like, you're good at music. And she's like, no, I'm not. And I'm like, no. Like, you don't have a choice living in this family.
That is a wonderful thing. You got the whole Von Stratt family.
That's right. Yeah. So we do gigs with Jeremiah. Again, he plays drums. I play guitar. Tanya is piano player, and Ember will do a portion of the set if we're at a bar or something. She'll do 20 minutes. Jeremiah will do a little bit and whatever. So. Yeah, it's a blessing. We our kids had never been really athletic. Like I think like in high school or whatever, it's like, are you a sports person or a music person? And I think sports are great, but the kids never really gravitated to that. I played baseball as a kid and was okay. I wasn't great, but I was all right. And but I didn't pick up music until I was an adult. But these kids, and Tanya from a very early age you could tell she had it. And it runs in families, apparently. So.
Well, good. And it's a very good thing, too, to be able to play an instrument. Yeah. I can't play an instrument. I used to be able to play the saxophone when I was in middle school, but I can't do it now. Yeah. Did you ever play Careless Whisper? Did you learn the Careless Whisper sax solo? Because if you played the sax, and any time in the last 30 years, you learned the Careless Whisper sax solo. Well, I had a whole book of Kenny G.
Oh, there you go.
So I tried to recreate Kenny G.
He was huge.
He still is.
He is.
He's still touring. That's dude's
right.
like 67 years old and still getting around, man. Yeah. It's nuts.
Yeah. Have you been to any concerts recently?
Not in Spokane. No, not in Spokane.
We love, as you can imagine, going to shows. We saw Willie Nelson when he was here this summer. It was awesome.
Good.
Yeah, him and Mellencamp and Bob Dylan. And Bob Dylan is amazing, but he didn't do any of his hits, and it was I'll just say it was a low point of the show because he didn't acknowledge the crowd. He didn't he didn't play any of his hits and whatever, so it was a long hour. But Mellencamp was awesome. He opened the show, and I've seen some clips of John Mellencamp recently where it seemed like he turned into some curmudgeonly old geezer, and he wasn't that at all. He was awesome. He was very happy and friendly and just very grateful and high energy, and he was great. And then Willie Nelson was there with his kids. And the show was great. And I sort of feel like if you're into music or if you have the ability to go to shows, there are some artists that you got an obligation to go see. Oh, yeah. We saw the Eagles before Glenn died, and I'll never forget. Henley busting into that first line of Hotel California back behind the kit, and I was looking at my dad, and I was like, I cannot believe we're here. I can't believe we're in the same room as this thing that's happening right now when he starts into Hotel California. And I just think, for a music lover, it's we're not always going to have these people. And I've not seen Springsteen, I've not seen U2, I've not seen Sting, I've not, and you got to go to Seattle for some of this stuff. But I think we need to make some of those trips because some of these people aren't going to be around for too much longer.
True. A lot of things went through my head when you were talking about that. First thing is Spokane's new, the pavilion.
Sure, yeah.
I'm really excited as to how that has just increased as a new venue.
Yeah, that's cool.
An asset. When you talk about downtown's an asset, the pavilion's definitely an asset.
Yeah.
The shows I've been obsessing and seeing lately have been comedy.
Oh, okay,
I've been
sure.
going seeing comedians
cool.
as they've been coming in because, it is cool. Back when I was in the Marines, there was a point where I was with this certain command at Edson Range where we were just on a rifle range shooting every day, and so we had a more set schedule. So the command started whoring us out on the weekends to go be security for concerts. And that was kind of a cool voluntold experience. So I would see, like, I saw Eminem, Snoop Dogg, the whole D12, several other rap concerts, a couple rock concerts. We saw Kiss. We saw Breaking Benjamin. But what I thought was strange of it was the concerts that had all the violence and fighting were the country music concerts.
Is that right?
Yeah. It was always country music.
That's funny.
It wasn't, nothing happened at the rap concert. That was funny.
So speaking of comedy, have you seen Gaffigan's new special? I think it's on Hulu.
Oh, I love Jim Gaffigan.
Oh, so the first 15 minutes are stellar. It's an hour-long thing. First 20 minutes, amazing. The rest of it's all right. But it's worth the price of admission for the first 20 minutes. It's pretty great. Yeah,
I'll have to check that out. And it's strange because because I have Hulu through Disney Plus.
Okay, sure.
And so I'm looking up something like Eastbound and Down, because Eastbound and Down used to be playing on Netflix.
Okay.
And so I'm trying to get to it, and it says get it through Hulu. So I go through Hulu through my Disney account, and I can't get it. It doesn't populate. And it only populates up specifically through a tier of Hulu that you have to purchase from Hulu. Exactly.
That's weird.
Yeah, it is strange the way things have been schisming.
Yeah.
And there's also this company that I work for. I've been working for them for 6 years now. It's called Funflix Outdoor Movies. And we're a large outdoor movie venue. We show up with all the inflatables.
Okay, sure.
So we do all the movies at the pavilion, big crowds.
That's great. Yeah.
And so I'm trying to get an indie film festival going this year. So I'll see how that works out.
Well, that's neat because, I remember as a kid drive-in movies and whatever. And like, I don't know when there was a drive-in movie theater in Spokane. And so I've seen these pop-up ones that and I've never been to one, but man, I remember the double feature going with my parents when I was a kid to drive-in movies. In fact, my parents they made a huge mistake in 1977. So I was born in 71. The movie Jaws came out in 77, and they took me as like a 5-year-old to see Jaws in the drive-in theater. Okay, so usually back in the day, what would happen is like a lot of times it'd be a double feature, right? And you'd play the R-rated movie or the scary movie or whatever in the last one, because then I think they assume that the kids would be asleep in the back seat. And because you can't start those until the sun goes down at like 9:30 or something. And so the last movie got over at like 1:30 or 2 in the morning. Anyway, I remember seeing Jaws when I was 5 years old, and that's a huge mistake. You don't let your kids see Jaws when you're 5 years old. So what happened was I went to bed that night, and in the middle of the night, I rolled off my bed while I was sleeping. And then I rolled under my bed. And then I woke up, and I thought I was eaten by Jaws, because I was underneath my bed, and I freaked out. So don't take your 5-year-old to see Jaws, but yes, a good movie if you're an adult or a teenager.
Yeah, you know what? Indiana Jones, the very first one, did that to me.
Classic.
It messed me up.
Classic.
But people go to the drive-in for the experience.
Yeah.
And what killed the drive-ins was movie rights.
Oh.
It's movie rights. It's such a stupid gamble.
Huh.
Because to get movie rights for, say, The Goonies, right? Because we did that. We had 2 nights in a row, double features each night. One of each movie was $600 per the movie rights, or 50% of ticket sales, depending. And so there's no, it's not feast or famine. It's either lose money, break even, or make a little bit of money.
Huh.
And that's what killed the drive-in movie theater, and we're seeing it now. So my thought is, if I could get an independent films those owners of the independent films to allow us to show them with no
Because
charge.
it'll be cheaper for an independent film, or
Yeah, so that way we don't have to pay movie rights, and
Yeah.
we give them an opportunity to be on the big screen.
yeah. But then you got to ask who's going to show up to watch an independent movie.
True. Who shows up to watch? But people show up to the drive-in for the experience.
Because of the experience. So I'll give you that.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. That if you're creating an experience, then it can on some level supersede, like you're not showing the biggest blockbuster that came out.
Yes, generally, and that's what people show up for is the experience.
Yeah.
And I'll see how it works. We'll see how it works this year with that. But that's a fun thing I do for a seasonal gig.
Fun.
So I have another question I was going to ask. So with Golden Rule Break, what do you do with all your guys' data?
Customer data you're referring to. Yeah. There's very little of it. There's a phone number and a name, and we collect some email addresses and whatever. And it's stored in the cloud and with our typical security protocols and whatever. Yeah.
Is there any business problems that you think that could be solved with data? What business?
Oh, for us specifically? Good question. I think most of the time, like, if you lock into something and let it roll, that things will roll for a period of time, and it will be successful. And we have made a couple of changes, and I don't know if this is the area in which you're referring, but so we have started using texting solution.
Oh, cool.
Okay, and that has been huge for us. It's really been great. So I mentioned this earlier, where we take pictures of the cars, of the repairs that are needed, and then we text them the estimate that's broken down by cost along with the pictures, and then they can authorize it right through the texting solution, and that has been really fantastic. We also are actually just this week we're rolling out in a slow rollout, texting customers on services that they have declined. And so if we say, hey, it needs $2,000 worth of work, and like there's about 1,000 of it that's really urgent, you better do that. But this other 1,000 is, you can wait on that if you want. If you don't have the money now, or you don't mind coming back here or whatever. And so we are rolling out this portion of the service that will then text them, 60 days later or 90 days later, hey, friendly reminder that this stuff still needs to get done. And we want to try to leverage some of that when you talk about the data, and we want to leverage all that. We don't want to be irritating by any means. We're not that. We don't need to be pushing too hard. It's a simple, like, we're here to help you. And I know businesses say this when we talk about text marketing or email marketing, we're sending you all this stuff so that we can help you. And it comes off as hollow sometimes, but that's why we don't want to overdo it. It's like we told you that this thing needed to be fixed in probably 3 months or something. It's going to become urgent. We know you're busy, whatever, a quick text out to them, just reminding them, hey, plus like little coupon. So a little $50 off thing. So a little incentivizing along with the reminder. So, and we do a weekly email blast, for the email addresses that we've collected, and we try not to overdo that. But in that email blast, we also include a picture of that week's reader board sign. So this is really good for us because our unsubscribe rate on that is very low, because we are giving them something. Like, it's not just an advertisement to get them to come back in, but we're giving them by way of that picture of the reader board sign. So our unsubscribe rate is way lower than industry standard. And I think part of it is because of that. It's like, I don't need my breaks, but I like in my email once a week, I get to see if I didn't get a chance to drive by a Golden Rule, at least, I get to read the message. So
that's pretty good. I'm just thinking about there's a lot of opportunities there for good data collection and getting those things done. So another question I have is, what sort of book recommendations do you have? What have you been interested in reading? What do you think people should read?
Yeah. Well, it should be no surprise that I would encourage you to read your Bible. In fact, let me tell you something funny about that. So, I told my kids that when they were younger, I said, listen, if you read the Bible all the way through cover to cover before you're 18, I will shave my head. So my oldest, every kid wants to see their dad shave their head, right? Or do something ridiculous. They want their parents to look foolish. And so I told Bethlehem, who is our oldest, I said, listen, if you read the Bible cover to cover before you're 18, I'll shave my head. And she did it. We have pictures. You can look on my Facebook page. There's pictures of me getting going to the barber with a straight razor, shaving my head.
Ooh,
yeah,
nice.
Yeah. And then Jeremiah, once you've seen your dad bald, it loses its appeal. So I told him, whatever you want to do. And so I dyed my hair bright pink when he finished reading the Bible all the way through. And it's funny because I felt very conspicuous, like bright pink hair, right? And I'm walking out of the barber place and I'm like, oh my goodness, everybody's going to look at me. I had to go to Walmart right afterwards. And so I went sheepishly into the Walmart and I've got this bright pink hair. Nobody noticed.
You fit in.
That's right. Fit right in.
People
Right.
Walmart.
It depends on where you go. But yes, I was like, oh my gosh, everybody must be staring at me. Walk into the Walmart, bright pink hair, nobody cares. But so Ember, you're probably not going to listen to this because you hear me talk too much. But she is 3 months away from her 18th birthday, and as far as I'm aware, this girl has not even started reading. And the Bible is a big book. This girl loves to read. She has more books than she loves to read. And I think she thinks that she can just bang it out, in a couple of weeks or something. The Bible is a very long book.
It's an epic.
It is an epic. So Ember, I've warned you. You've been warned all year that if you want me to do, so she wants. Now there's certain things I won't do. I'm not shaving my eyebrows because they might not come back. All right.
Oh.
But it has to progressively get worse, right? So we're thinking maybe, a pink mohawk, or like you can imagine. So at my age, I don't have the thickest hair you've ever seen, but it's still there mostly. Okay. And so I thought she could also do a horseshoe. So it looks like I've just got hair, just a rim of hair, and just shave the rim. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I don't know, but she has to finish reading first, and whether she's going to get through it or not, I don't know. And then Liberty thinks that she can read her little picture Bible, and that counts for me to do something. And I'm like, no way, no way.
Get through the begots.
Yeah, that's right. Through the genealogies and that's right. So that's my recommendation on a book. Especially for my daughter, Ember, who better get started.
Yeah, for sure. So when it comes to streaming shows, what platforms do you use?
Oh, it's Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime. It's the typical ones.
Okay, so you got them all.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
What sort of, if you were to film or direct a movie, what would the movie be?
Oh man, what a question. That's a question I've never been asked before. I'm big into movies. We have a little home theater at home and I collect Blu-ray movies. Believe it or not, I'm that guy that still does physical media. And so I really like movies. So I really like noir, okay? 50s, 40s, black and white film noir, like Mike Hammer, gangster, tough sort of crime movies. So I'll say that because I like that genre, gangster movies, a lot of emotion and toughness. So.
Yeah, those old school black and white, those were the ultimate of the style, and I'm part of this group, this film group, where we meet up, and it's kind of cool because you meet in people in the industry, and you can get in things, and we go into film competitions and festivals. But the lens, like all these new cameras all have adapters for old lenses, because there's a huge market for people looking for lenses in that time, just to try to
recreate that feel.
Yeah, your camera, and just to give it a new feel. You know, and your ability to work with black and white just says so much to your testament of cinematography, because that's
shadow and light and all that. Yeah,
because that's all they had.
Yeah,
it was black and white. I just finished watching Citizen Kane.
Oh yeah,
if you've seen that. That's a good
of course I have.
And I think about, could I do it any better?
Yeah.
To this point. But
yeah. So this reminds me, during COVID, during 2020. I did this thing with my kids, and you can look this up on our Golden Rule. So goldenrulebreak.com. Go onto that site, and there's a section of, it's like generations or something like that, and it's just a little bit history page and some different things. So during COVID, I did this thing with my kids that we called KISS, KISS, and KISS stands for, and hopefully I can remember, knowledge of important societal significance or something like that. Okay. So what I did was, because we weren't going out, we weren't doing, like, there wasn't anything to do out, I picked a series of things that I felt were culturally significant. And Citizen Kane was one of those, although we never got around to watching it. That I would make my kids watch. Yeah. Or we listened to some Beethoven. Okay. Like I made the kids sit in our home theater listening to Beethoven. Okay. We read the Declaration of Independence.
Good one.
Okay. We watched a movie about civil rights in the 60s. And what else did we do? Anyway, you should look it up, because we took pictures of it and put it on our website, whatever. And that was really fun for me as an excuse to, like, make my kids, like, be exposed to stuff that culturally, I don't know if they're going to pick up on. In fact, the first day that we did it was the same day that Little Richard died. And so that was our very first one, where we listened to Little Richard. We talked about early rock and roll and what that meant, and how what we know today and through the decades was built on Elvis and Little Richard and Jerry Lee Lewis and, Fats Domino and all that. So anyway, that's a tangent, but that was a lot of fun. Yeah.
It's important to know the history.
Yeah.
And give your kids that education that they aren't getting in the school.
Yeah. Like,
you can't expect kids to actually read the Declaration of Independence.
Right.
Like, that would be racist in school, because they talk about the godless savages and all this stuff. But that is good.
Yeah. What does it mean? And so it was fascinating when we read through that, because not just kids, but people in general have a perception of America or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, we're all shaped. Our thinking is shaped by our culture and the prevailing zeitgeist and all that. But there's something about going back to the source, and that's what I think it was for reading the Declaration. It was like, whoa. And you try to put yourself into that moment with those people and what these words actually meant. And this reminds me, and maybe perhaps we could wrap it up here. Yeah. But this reminds me that the same thing is true for Christianity. Like, so we live in a secular society. The influence of faith in our society has diminished to a scary degree. Okay. And since we live in a largely secular society, that secular portion of our society has a certain opinion of who Christians are, what Christianity is, what church is. And some of that impression is correct, and some of it is not correct. Okay? And I would encourage anyone listening to this to find a Bible. Mm-hmm. You can find one online. You can buy one on Amazon. And it would be really fascinating for you, I think, to read part of the Bible. Okay? Mm-hmm. Because, like I said, we all have these impressions of what Christianity is or who Jesus was. And so read something about Jesus, okay? New Testament stuff. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John tell the story of Jesus from his birth to his death and resurrection, okay? I would encourage you to read and try your best to lay aside any of our current cultural movements or ideas or frameworks or whatever, and just put yourself into that story. The story of salvation, the story of a baby that was born, that lived and breathed, that suffered and died for our sins, and was raised again so that we could spend forever in heaven and be reunited with God. And I think there's something so valuable in stripping away everything else, my preconceived ideas, and going to the source, whether it's the Declaration or whether it's the Bible or whatever it is, okay? Go back to the source if you want to have a fresh perspective on some of these ideas and thoughts.
True. And it took me years for me to realize this, but the story of Jesus starts with somebody sitting in their house and a dead relative walking through the door and sitting down, which is insane. And then it's like, you were dead. How did you come back to life? And this happened through all the land of Jerusalem, because once that's like an overlooked thing in the book of Matthew, and the dead came back to life.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like,
you're talking about at the after Jesus died. Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. There's this whole section that's like, and people came up out of the graves and walked around. And I'm like, well, we never talk about that.
Yeah,
what in the world?
Yeah. It's like, hold on. That's where it all starts. It's like,
it's amazing.
These people of this time have this overwhelming evidence of their dead relatives coming back and sitting down. It's like, you were dead. I buried you.
That's
I
weird.
Processed this.
Wow.
So why are you alive? Jesus Christ. Well, because of Jesus. Well, yeah, I know. It's an incredible thing. But yeah, we've been running on almost 3 hours now.
That's
2
amazing.
hours, 45 minutes. Time flies when you're having fun. So last but not least, the most important question, Dallas, where can people find you?
Yeah, so goldenrulebreak.com and social media, again, Dallas Low, and there's no E on the end of that. And you got to look up my wife's music, TanyaLowMusic.com, all social media platforms, all streaming services. Her music is amazing.
All right. Well, there you guys have it. Be sure to check out his links in the video description below. Be sure to like, subscribe, and smash that bell for more data-driven updates. Thanks for listening and watching. Bye.